All right. How are you, Tom? Oh, you're muted right now.
I didn't want to bother you. Yeah, I'm doing fantastic.
Good to go for now.
You made it through the week.
Made it through the week. I have a different setup at my computer right now. I'm trying it out
Okay.
because I have remarks and I want them to be here. So
How many screens do you have?
two. So I've got a laptop and then an additional monitor. You're up top for me. My laptop is down here. All right, we got someone in the waiting room. I'll make you a co-host
Oh.
here.
And
Today, unlike some of our other days, we are, we got a lot of sessions. They're right after one or the other, and
people will probably be joining and not joining.
yeah,
Jenna
yeah.
Peters.
Yep, member of the ECP group. So we'll. But yeah, so unlike on our other days where we have been a little more prescribed about, arrive 10 minutes early, we'll make sure you're all set up. I think it's going to be a little more just rock and roll as we go.
Yeah, I'll try to keep up with the admits, and I'm going to try to take photos again.
Okay, cool.
Hi, Janet.
Hey, Janet. Oh, you're
Hi,
muted.
you let me
Yeah.
in early. Do I feel extra special or am I the only one in here?
I mean, I hope you feel extra
Pot of
special.
plant.
How's it going?
Going all right.
Yeah.
Great week.
What a week.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it could have been pulled off any more smoothly.
Well,
Great.
that is an honor for you to say.
At least from our perspective.
I do think it went pretty smooth. It's a lot to sort out, but I do think that in execution, we were pretty good. So that's good.
I was
And,
also, oh, go ahead.
well, as Tyler, one of our steering committee members, said, here's to the best and last virtual act we will ever have. Yeah. So what's on your mind, Janet?
Oh, I was just gonna say the sessions that I attended, I was also from the organizing perspective impressed, but I was also pretty impressed with people's Zoom etiquette was like pretty reasonable. I've been to other professional events that have had less Zoom etiquette. So good job.
Enter anybody else yet? Because I see some other people. So I'll let you do the admits.
Yeah, and I know that Janet and the ECP crew are right after my opening remarks. So,
Jordan, is it set up that we can take over the screen?
Let me see if I make you co-host right now, what that would do, if that would give you that capability. I think that it will.
Okay.
All right, so I've made you a co-host. What are you able to do, Janet?
I have the share screen button, and when I click it, it looks like I would be able to indeed share my screen.
All right. So I'm going to put a little dot by the 12:15 session. So, yes. Hey, everyone. Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday. It is wet here as Delta moves through my neighborhood.
How is everyone doing? How are you doing? How's
everyone
doing? You're good.
We're fine. It's just a lot of rain.
Okay.
Yeah, but it seemed to just bring a lot of rain, and it seemed like it hit the coast of Louisiana in kind of a more unpopulated place, less populated.
Oh, I did hear that. Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully that's good.
Everyone, give me a smile for the camera in 3, okay? 3, 2, 1. Thank you.
There's going to be so many of those of me at the end of this week.
Yeah, well, I figured a full issue just of you.
Here's the thing. I wasn't keeping as good a track, but I probably should have. I should make sure like I'm not wearing like the same shirt and like 4 of them. But maybe I am. Well,
I don't think you can do that, Jordan. Single time I see you, you're in a different outfit.
Well, I do like to accessorize. Let me let in Molly and Daniel and Corinna as well on the chance that there's anything you all want to sort out before before we will begin. We'll begin, a minute or two after the hour. So,
Okay.
so I just let in a couple of folks from our ECP crew, and I know you all will be coming up around 12:15, shortly after my opening remarks. I've not yet let in everyone from the waiting room, but is there anything you all want to sort out being in the same meeting space right now?
Molly and Daniel and Karina, do you have the screen share button on the bottom?
Jordan, is this going to be just all the same Zoom this afternoon?
It will all
Okay.
be one Zoom session, and I will also say that in my opening remarks.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good. Do we have somebody monitoring the chat just as things move on?
So as things move on, I'm happy to monitor the chat. I'm sure my colleagues, Lindsay and Jen, will also be happy to.
Great.
I think we're going to be with as many things happening all in the same room and not all with the same sort of prep time for each session as we've had all week. I think we're going to be just a little more rock and roll about it. So,
that's fine.
when our ECP crew takes over, if you want us to monitor chat, just say, hey, Jordan, Lindsay, Jen, would you mind monitoring the chat? So yeah, we'll just kind of let us know as we do it.
I just, that seems to be a place where people pop questions and stuff, and so it just helpful if the person who's who's presenting doesn't have to pull double duty that way.
Definitely.
I also usually keep an eye on the YouTube chat. There's way less action there, but as the week has gone on, people have realized that if they would prefer a more passive experience here and they don't want to have to end up in a breakout room in case that might happen, they just go straight there, but they still sometimes use the chat over there. So just FYI.
May I take
Thank
one
you.
photo of the group?
Mhm.
3, 2, 1. Thank you.
Tom, our photo person.
That's right. He was before his role as
Yes.
executive director as well.
I don't think about those things, so I'm appreciative of people who do.
Yeah.
As you get older, you care about archives.
My whole life would be undocumented if like with pictures if it were left up to me.
They'd have like baby photos of Amy. And
Yeah,
then,
really. Like past that, forget about it.
Every
Did
group
she
of friends
live?
needs
I don't
one photo
know.
taker.
All right, we're at 12:59. We'll let the large group in a couple of minutes. We'll give it until 1 or 2 after the hour.
Lindsay, you described exactly my experience in one of the talks this week when my husband was setting a client meeting, so I had to be quiet. And then they're like going into a breakout room. I'm like, leave.
How's it look?
So it does say, I tried to take over the screen share. It does say you can't take over. So I think that setting is maybe not enabled. So
I
we
think
might
that's
just have to like stop sharing and then start sharing again.
Yes, I think that's my default setting, I believe. All right, we're at 1 after, so in just a moment, I will let folks in to the room. Everyone here? Good. All right. I'll let folks in now. All right, welcome everyone. Resume the recording. Here we are. We've made it all the way through a virtual act, knock on wood, mostly with successes, not very many glitches. We do have a full slate of programming for today. Let me just request from my colleagues, Lindsay or Jen or Melissa, if you see folks joining up in the waiting room, please let them in, because I'm actually gonna say some words. I'm gonna have some opening remarks. So welcome everyone. I'd say, as I welcome you all, if you are willing and able, please turn on your cameras. I'd love to see everyone's faces as we're taking some time to get together with one another. I will say as an announcement for today, the Zoom session that we have for all of the presentations today is all one session. There are not separate Zoom links. So if you do get disconnected or have to depart and return or something like that, same link, just follow it however you got here already. We have a captive audience here. You all made it with that link, so you all know at least somehow how to get there. With that said, it sort of seems weird to do this because we began programming about a week ago, but after a week's worth of programming, welcome to Virtual Act 2020. I'd say, yeah, clap virtually if you wish, either on your screen or with some reactions. I encourage those. I know lots of folks are muted throughout our presentations, but that doesn't mean you have to be visually muted in the same way as you might be auditorily. For folks who might not already know me, my name is Jordan Troisi, and I serve as the director of the annual Conference on Teaching. And my day job is as the Senior Associate Director of the Center for Teaching and Learning at Colby College. I hope you all have been enjoying the programming that we've had this week, both our synchronous sessions as well as our on-demand sessions. Recordings of both of those will continue to be available through our ACT website for the foreseeable future. So if you haven't had a chance to catch them this week, I know there's a lot there. They will continue to be available. And additionally, at the outset of this, I should mention that if you hadn't already heard this week, this is the 75th anniversary for the Society for the Teaching of Psychology. Yeah. The Society for the Teaching of Psychology is the organization that hosts the annual Conference on Teaching. As my friend Amy Feinberg, our president, knows, we were hoping to do a little bit more of a celebration for that this year. Didn't quite come together, like how everything didn't really quite come together in the ways we would have planned this year, but we'll keep this in our minds. We'll look forward to our next 75 years together. As I kick off today's programming, which will go until about 3:30 Central Time, this is the part where I say, take that and put it in your time zone, 3:30 Central Time, whatever that is for you. I want to take a minute to express a very deep gratitude to a lot of people. I want to say thank you to Tom Pusateri, STP's Executive Director, Angela Legg, the Vice President of Programming for STP, Amy Feinberg, STP's President, and many members of the STP Executive Committee for supporting and helping my colleagues and I create Virtual ACT. This was the first time that any of us had ever thought of what a virtual conference might look like. And as the world turned upside down last spring, they were so caring and thoughtful and open to the possibilities of what ACT could be in a virtual world. I hope that it has lived up to expectations. I also could not have led the construction of this virtual act without the support and dedication of the ACT Steering Committee, Tyler Collette, Melissa Massacampo, and Jennifer Flynn. In a normal year, they are a huge help to me. In the year of 2020, they were my lifeline before and during the conference in the fullest sense. Tyler especially was a huge help in the home stretch of the conference with all things website and video uploading, two things we normally do very little of as we approach the conference, but this year became a huge part of our work. So thank you to Tyler, especially in our home stretch. And I would say as well, if you all have had anything to do with presentations for ACT, they have probably filtered through Tyler. So we all thank him very much. To my whole team, Melissa, Jennifer, Tyler, thank you all so much for brainstorming with me this year, for solving problems with me, for commiserating with me, and for being so patient with me as I said things like, I have no idea how this thing is gonna work. Truth be told, up until this moment, I still don't know if this thing is going to work. But I'm gonna hold on tight for the next 3 hours or so and hope that it will. I wanna also say thank you to my good friend, the incoming director of ACT, Lindsay Masland, in whose very capable hands I will be leaving ACT after this year's conference. For those who haven't already heard, this is my last year as director, and for the ACT transition process, the new director spends a year shadowing the processes to figure out how the conference works. Normally a very good practice to get used to how the conference goes. That whole thing was going along great until we hit mid-March and 2020 decided to, well, explode in every way possible. All jokes aside, let me zoom in on that experience. You will have to pardon my Zoom pun just now. Thank you. On March 10th of 2020, Lindsay and I were scheduled to arrive for a site visit to book a hotel for a future ACT. That contract is still pending, predictably, because COVID makes everything take 10 times as long. On my way to the city, my flight got delayed, so I texted Lindsay to let her know, and all the while she was getting familiar with how hotels treat conference directors. Directors of a conference our size might bring about $100,000 to $200,000 worth of business to a hotel. So if you were curious, hotels are usually rather nice to people who might bring $100,000 to $200,000 worth of business to a hotel. As was the case then, they had delivered a cheese plate to Lindsay's room to welcome her. And she was legitimately so pretty enthusiastic about that. I mean, who wouldn't be? After I replied with a proper enthusiasm for a fine cheese plate, as I am also someone who appreciates one of these, I replied with a more sobering text about the role of director that would end up being a foreshadowing for the next 7 months to come. It's not all cheese plates, it's mostly emails. The site visit usually has a lot of cheese plates involved, but there are almost zero for the remainder of the year, although I hope maybe some of you have a cheese plate in front of you now, because it's Saturday and why not? We completed our site visit over the next 2 days. The threat of COVID looming larger each day. While we were together, my university moved to fully remote teaching. Lindsay's had done so days before. Also, while we were there, the NBA had canceled all of their games for what would become many months. Flying home at the end of that 2-day trip, the airports were full of people coming to and from spring break trips, business trips, family vacations, all of us starting to realize, starting to look around, wondering if it was safe to be sitting next to a stranger, a friend, a family member. Yes, folks, it's not all cheese plates. In the months that would follow, March through October, Lindsay, the ACT Steering Committee, the STP Executive Committee, and I, amid the turmoil of COVID and racist traumas and protests that paralleled what we had seen in the 1960s, we would somehow find a way to jump through the hoops, canceling our in-person conference in Pittsburgh and arranging a brand new version. It's not all cheese plates, it's mostly emails. And it was mostly emails. Emails and Zoom meetings, proposals and Post-it notes, website drafts and legal negotiations, and plenty of nights where we turned off our Zooms and went to bed thinking, wishing the ideas would all be a little clearer in the morning. And mostly they were, and even when they weren't, we pushed on anyway. We pushed on because we knew at the end of all those emails and Zoom meetings that we'd have a chance to all be back together again. And here we are today. For so many of us, ACT is a homecoming. This year it seems different in more ways than it seems the same, but I hope it still feels like a homecoming to you, whether this is your first time or your 15th time. This spring and into the summer, the changes of our lives piled up hard and fast. And even those of us in the least disturbed circumstance, a place where I would put myself, let's say, we're still deprived of so much. So many things left us yearning for something different, something more, something old and familiar. I'm reminded of the words of the poet Marie Howe, whose work I quoted last year in my welcoming remarks in Denver. But now, here, in a completely different version of ACT, I find myself returning to them again for new meaning. As Howe writes in her poem, What the Living Do, we want the spring to come and the winter to pass. We want whoever to call or not call, a letter, a kiss. We want more and more and then more of it. Late this summer, after I moved to my new job and my new school in Maine, some old friends I know were coming up for a brief vacation at their family cottage. We all went through a quarantine period, and then I met them there for a weekend. And I caught myself realizing, besides my romantic partner, these are the first people I've hugged, the first people I've touched in 6 months. I wanted the spring to come and the winter to pass. I wanted whoever to call or not call, a letter, a kiss. I wanted more and more and then more of it. I think that's where we are now, desperate for things to come back to us. The old friends, the old ideas, the old ways of living and being with people. A little weight to keep us from floating out into a great unknown. ACT has always felt like that for me. A way to tie myself to a buoy of big ideas and bigger hearts. I felt like I needed a lot of buoying this year. I hope Virtual ACT was that way for you, even if different than normal. I miss seeing you all in person, but I'm so warm to see you all here. Thank you for joining us for Virtual ACT. Thank you for convening with us at a time when we all need more convening with one another. I'll have more remarks and a goodbye at the end of today's session starting around 3 p.m. Central Time. I've built in the option to have a toast at that time if you would all like to join me for that. If you're not prepared right now for a toast, but you could be and want to be, there will be a break in the program about halfway through. Feel free to prepare in whatever ways you see fit at that time. In the meantime, I'm thrilled to bring you our program for our events for today. We'll have 2 synchronous sessions as well as some information from the STP Executive Committee. The Zoom link will be the same throughout as a reminder, so come and go as you need. It's the same link Next up, let me pass it over to our colleagues in the Early Career Psychologist Committee for their session on crafting your career, developing an academic plan for success as an early career psychologist. I'll allow them to take it away. If there's anything you need from us as you're going, just let us know.
Thanks so much, Jordan. And I think I speak for everybody, and I'm seeing in chat and I'm seeing hearts, lots of clapping reacts. I speak for everybody when I say that this has been a wonderful conference, lots of great stuff. As always, we love you. You always do a good job. Thank you, thank you, thank you for still making this possible and being like something positive in 2020, which is rare. So as Jordan said, this is going to be a session. I'll share my screen for early career psychologists, but even if you're not an ECP, you are more than welcome to join us. And it is going to be called Crafting Your Career, Developing a Plan for Success as an Early Career Psychologist. And for the sake of time, because we have 1 hour and lots of content, I'm going to jump right into it. So creating the foundation for a strong career in academia can be a daunting task for ECPs or early career psychologists. What we're going to do in this workshop is, as your ECP committee, we're going to take a multi-part approach to helping ECPs craft a successful career. And we're going to do a bunch of different things, including a self-assessment of internal and external career considerations, deciding when to say yes and when to say no, and some reflections on work-life balance as well. So here's our agenda for today. How this is going to work is that we're going to provide some points for discussion and consideration on each of these topics. Then we'll give you a chance to reflect on your own priorities and establish some concrete actions. I'm going to start with a very brief overview where I'll just address some technology and things like that. Then I'll turn it over to Janet in just a few minutes, who's going to discuss, again, creating that plan for academic success. And she'll give us a needs assessment that we'll complete to help basically inform and guide that plan. After that, Karina and Albie will help us kind of determine how we can best follow this plan by establishing work-life balance and learning when it's best to say yes versus no to opportunities that might either help or maybe hinder your career plan. And finally, Molly will close by putting all of these different threads together. Okay, let's talk for just a moment about some logistics. I want to make a couple of quick notes about how we're going to use technology during this workshop. In terms of webcams, we'd love to see your faces anytime we're discussing or just presenting or chatting. You know, if you're in a position to do so and it's appropriate and you're comfortable, definitely, you know, show us your wonderful faces. We do have some activities, some sort of self-reflective activities. You'll do some handouts where we think it would be best to turn off your webcam solely for the purpose of just feeling like, you know, you're not being watched, and so you can just concentrate and have a little bit more privacy. But ultimately, that's totally up to you. In terms of questions, we encourage them. Chime in, ask questions. You can leave short questions in the chat. I will be monitoring the chat after I'm done with my little overview piece for the rest of this session, and I'll try and respond to as many as I can. If you have a bigger question that you'd like to state verbally, totally fine. Use that raise hand feature in Zoom. You know, click on participants and raise hand. I will try and keep an eye on that as well. If for whatever reason I miss it, just again in chat, just let me know. Just say that, you know, oh, I've had my hand raised, and we'll definitely get to it. Okay. Now for a few disclaimers. Everyone's career goals and your institution and your role at that institution, you know, all that's going to vary from person to person. So we're giving you some general feedback and guidelines. We encourage you to really adjust that as necessary based on your situation, what works for you, and what you want out of your career. Our goal is to help you create an explicit plan for your career, something really actionable and concrete. As you achieve goals that you're listing today and thinking about today, you'll have to, again, kind of revisit. But what we're trying to do is provide you with a framework just to think about your career in the long term. Okay, last but not least for me, we've put together a Google Drive folder filled with resources that you'll find useful, including these slides here that we're using to present today. A variety of handouts, some of which, again, we'll be using today, as well as a document pointing you to some readings about work-life balance. I'll leave this link up for just a moment, but don't worry if you miss it. You don't have to type it into chat. We're going to be sharing it. And throughout today's presentation, I will be sharing the links to whatever we're talking about. So if we have a specific handout or activity, I'll give you the direct link as well. But just keep in mind it's in this folder too. But that's it for me. For now, I'm going to stop sharing to give Janet a chance to talk as well. So Janet, take it away.
Janet, you're muted.
Janet, you're muted. We can read what you're saying.
There we go. Thank you. Okay, so the first step in creating for you early career psychologists is this idea of this needs assessment and where are you, where do you want to go, and creating that plan that's going to help you get there. So I'm an IO psychologist, and in graduate school, we often joked that the answer to every unasked question from a client was a needs assessment. So when they're like, hey, we want to develop leadership, or what about this employee selection system? The answer is always like, okay, but first we have to figure out what do you already have and where are maybe some gaps, and then how do we get there? And so this is relevant to building your career as well. So that's why you should be doing one. So the very first thing that we're going to do and talk about is turning internally. What do you want out of your career? When you look at, as an early career, when you look 10, 15, 30 years down the line, what does that career look like for you? What do you want to get out of it? We spent, in this room, we've spent a lot of time getting to be in this room. How do we want to use it? And what's going to make you feel satisfied in your career? What are your professional goals? Part of that is taking a look at your strengths and weaknesses. Given your goals, what are you good at now that's helping you get there? And what are some areas of potential development? And then, and this is the harder part, taking a hard look at what you're doing. How are you spending your time right now? And does that align with where you want to be? But we don't exist in a vacuum, as much as sometimes we might like to. We don't exist in a vacuum. So you also want to look at, what does your job say? What are the requirements of your job? What is going to be rewarded? If you're passionate about teaching, but your job maybe doesn't reward that as much, is that a good fit for you? And maybe it's a good fit now, or maybe that discrepancy is okay for now, but is that going to be okay long term? And thinking about strategically, what do you want out of your career? What does your job reward and expect of you? And I think what you have to also think about is, what are unwritten expectations? Because your job description might say one thing, but there might be unwritten expectations that even if you're meeting your job requirements, that you might want to consider. So you really have to look at that match. And there's no answer. There are 7 billion people in this world, and the only one that has the answer to that question is you, and if that's right for you. So looking at your job, once you've sort of gotten the lay of the land of that, you can start to look around and say, okay, I know what I want to do. I know what's going to get rewarded within my job. What are some of those opportunities that exist out there? And so one thing that you can do is, to start small, is look at the strategic plan of your campus, your institution, your university, because those types of things are going to have support from administration, and often you can get funds for them as well. So for example, one of my passion projects, I was able to get a significant amount of funding and support from upper level administration, because I went through and tied it really closely to our strategic plan and said, oh, you want to do this thing? Here's all the ways where my thing helps that. You should give me money to do it. And so taking the time to identify those, what's going to be rewarded as in a system, can be really beneficial. But not just that, not just within your institution, but STP. STP has amazing, amazing resources, from colleagues to travel grants, to research grants, to teaching grants. There's a lot out there that STP offers, all for the low, low price of $25 a year. I should shout that out. You should definitely be a member if you're not already. Tons of benefits. But seeing what's out there, both within your internal and external fields, And then the last part of looking at the needs assessment is, do you have support? Do you have people who are in your corner? And that might look like people at your institution or in your department. For those of you who are on the tenure track, you probably have a committee, but for those of you who aren't, you may or may not have a promotion committee. You should get one. Even if your college doesn't do it, you should have people looking at your performance sort of on an annual basis to give you feedback and advice. The other thing is you don't have to have just internal, external members. Finding people who are outside your institution can look at things in a more objective way sometimes, or give you advice that you might not have thought about because they're not constrained by the politics or the context. So it's good to have a balance of both. And they might give you social support, they might give you career advice, but you don't have to have all of those things from one person. That can come from many people. So the more mentors, the better. And speaking of how awesome STP is and why you should be a member, is they have a mentorship program. And so if you're someone who maybe right now doesn't feel like you have a mentor, that's one way where you can get someone to maybe help you with your career. And also, I'll put myself out there. If anyone wants a mentor, I would be happy to have that connection and that relationship. So you can email me if you need a mentor. So what we're going to do is yes, thank you, Lindsay. I volunteer as tribute. I like that. So we're going to have, this is the time for you to have the opportunity to take that time that we often don't get. I feel like in academia, our jobs are so complex and multifaceted that we get stuck in the daily drudgery. We don't often get time to set aside to dream about like, this is what we want. So we have a needs assessment. So in that document that they have linked, here is, what are your teaching, your research, and your service goals? Yours might be, you might have to change your headings because that might not fit your job description, and that's fine. Use this as it's beneficial to you. So you can have your goals, your strengths, your weaknesses, and then this insight in like, how are you actually spending your time? For your job assessment, you can kind of lay out your expectations. And this is just a fictional example. Maybe yours is probably different. But also, what would you do? If you could allocate your time and write your job description, how would you allocate it? And how big of a gap is there between what you would do versus what you're rewarded for? And then looking at the environmental scan. So what opportunities are within your college or university? For teaching, we have tons of teaching awards, teaching for technology, teaching for teaching innovations, right? And the Smith and Learning and Teaching Grant. But within the field, as I mentioned, STP has a lot. So you could list STP's grants. So there's lots of ways here for you to do this. And then there's a mentorship where you can identify potential mentors. And I see some good stuff happening in the chat. So, maybe list those people. And so if you get to a point where you're ready for goal setting, we have some goal to take those big ideas and to make them specific. There's some goal setting documents there for you. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take 8 minutes. You can turn off your cameras, download the files. And what we want to do is I want you to work on that. Think about what this means to you. And then we're going to come back and discuss. So, yep, go ahead and you can turn off your cameras, download the documents. We're at the 1-minute warning, folks. So just to put that out there, we'll come back together in about a minute. Okay, so here's one of the cool things that did not happen last year is that because it's virtual, we have a lot of experienced folks in our workshop here. So now I think that's going to make for some amazing discussion. So ECPs, I think this is a great opportunity. If you have questions, comments, queries, we have an amazing pool of people for a discussion. So we have 8 minutes to sort of discuss this of your needs assessment or opportunities or anything like that. Anyone want to get us started?
I mean, I'll just quickly say, I think these are really terrific resources, and these are things that I'm going to be taking and using at my college in the context of the work that we do, fully attributing the credit to whom it is deserved.
I have a question to get it started. My question for the more experienced folks in our audience is, we talked a little bit about how the unwritten expectations of the job are not always exactly what's in our contracts or workload documentation. And so when we're trying to figure out how to best spend our time, we need to know the unwritten stuff too. So especially for early career folks, how would you recommend going about figuring out the unwritten rules of the game? Start with the softball.
Let me jump in there since I'm probably the oldest one here. So listen, one thing to do, talk to people that have just gone through the process. Talk to the people, particularly on the college committee, that monitor that process. What are they looking for? Yeah, I would really do that sort of thing rather than just reading the documents, because you're right, the unwritten rules are important.
I agree, and I'm seeing in the chat pretty much what I'm planning to say right here out loud is that's where your mentors become incredibly valuable. They have been through that process if they're not at your own institution, and can kind of talk in generalities, and then people within your institution can be very helpful in giving you the skinny on how, people prefer things that aren't necessarily communicated and that kind of thing. So mentors are really where it's at.
I was fortunate that my school actually assigned us both an in-department and out-of-department mentor. And I actually found that my out-of-department mentor was a good person to ask a little bit more about the unspoken rules, because I wasn't entirely comfortable asking my department at that point. I got to that point eventually, but it was a low stakes way of kind of saying, so by the way, so that to me was really important, whether it's officially assigned to you or whether you can cultivate that. I think that's important.
And I would like to say as well that as you go through these processes, and there are these unwritten rules and things, once you cross over, be a force for getting rid of the unwritten rules, because they're just not fair. And if we could use more of our capital once we've gained it to break down some of these, tricks of the game, then maybe the game might actually be more fair for everybody to play.
Leslie, I see you have a raised hand.
I accidentally hit that all the time and I have no idea how I do that. Sorry. But I will point out that, you know, universities are not the only place. So as a community college person, it's definitely different. So, I mean, I'm 4 and a little bit years away from retiring, and mentoring is just as important at the community college level as it is at the universities.
You know, it might be even more important at the community college level because everything that's written about this process is usually written at the university level. There's all kinds of materials at the university level, but not nearly as much at the community college. So I would say, yeah, mentoring is even more important there.
The interesting thing is that in our contract, mentors actually can get paid a small stipend for mentoring people. It's like, but they have to be asked.
You hear that, Diane Finley?
So,
I hear that, Jordan. Talk to the executive committee. Talk to the executive committee, Amy Feinberg, Susan Nolan, Thomas Terry, everybody else. I have no control over money, even in my institution.
so I have a question.
I would just say though, the people who are motivated by money are not the people you want as mentors.
Very true. So I have a question that came up for me as an early career I'm moving to mid, is I was asked to do an external letter of reference to like take someone else's documents and evaluate them. And I was like, I have no idea how to do that. So I'm just curious for those of you folks who have experience doing it, how did you figure out how to do it, what to include, what to write? Like, how did you navigate that process of being asked to do something that you've never done before, but you receive literally zero training on it?
Gina, can you repeat the very first part of that question, the task that you're referring to? I missed it, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that particular task was writing an external letter of review for a promotion for a colleague that I didn't know, right? Because I was the external letter writer. And so I was wondering how.
Janet, thanks. This is Diane. I have a couple thoughts, but I'm going to put that in the hopper because we are looking at some mid-career mentoring things to do for STP. I have a task force, David Kreiner's heading it, and they've done some wonderful work. We'll probably do it in terms of webinar type things. And so I'm putting that in the back of my head so that the camera on my iPad is not working, so that's why I can't turn it on. So I approach those as I approach a student that I don't know really well in my classes. I make them give me all kinds of documents, a letter stating why they want to go to a particular program or anything else. And then I write it from there. There's going to be some place where you're going to have to state how you know them. So you're really better off finding somebody that actually really knows you and can say, I've known them for, I don't know how many years. But I just do it the same way because we all get students that we've had in class but don't know super well, but have good enough records that you could write a lot for them. So I just sort of approach it from there. And if you start writing it and you need some more information, contact that person and say, tell me X, Y, Z, or whatever it is you need.
The first time I did one, somebody gave me, a senior person confidentially gave me one that they had done. And that was just incredibly helpful to see one. And I actually recently did the same for a colleague. I gave her confidentially ones I had written because it really is its own beast. So find somebody maybe senior at your institution or whom you trust and see if they're willing to share. I think that goes for just about any of these things that crop up that are new.
So that's okay to ask, like, can I see a confidential example from a mentor or someone? Or they could change the name.
The person who gave me the one that was a model was actually a former provost at my institution, who offered it when she was asking me to do one for a different institution. So I figured that if, you know, a very ethical provost could give me one and just tell me to keep it confidential, that's what made me feel comfortable giving a colleague, as long as it's people that I know and trust, that they're not going to share it. But it would almost be impossible to take. I mean, you would have to take so much off because you're mentioning publications. Like it would be so hard to make it truly anonymous without stripping it out.
Something that's standing out to me with regard to this is that this is one of very many things that mentor conversations could help shape, but often don't, right? Like we often are sort of very surface level at what we cover, but you're right that this is an experience that many of us will have and be a part of, but is often not discussed at all.
I would love any other sorts of suggestions for those sorts of things that, particularly as people transition from ECP to defined in the literature or by APA's workforce place that makes these definitions, as I found out. Let me know so that as we begin to move into that, we can do what people really want versus what we think they might want. So please, email me with any.
So I will email you, Diane. I have some ideas because that is me right now. But what we're going to do is we're going to transition to the next part. So now that you've got your needs assessment or an idea of it, the next part is like, how do you make strategic decisions to get there? So it's about saying yes and saying no and figuring out when to do each.
Great, thank you so much, Janet. Is my screen up and just the PowerPoint? Yes, okay, that was it. Okay, now everything's easy going. All right, so Janet, thank you for that needs assessment activity. My name is Albie Mendoza, and I'm the newest member of the STP ECP committee. The aim of this portion of our workshop is to reflect on how we can better develop work-life balance, buzzword in 2020, by being strategic about when to say yes and when to say no. So, an overarching strategy to support decision-making of saying yes or saying no to different projects is to go back to your needs assessment. Your own words and thoughts in that document can help you select into and out of opportunities that are in alignment with your career goals. So, choose your developmental opportunities. Let's say one of your goals within the next 5 years is to be an associate editor for a journal. It may be in your best interest to choose developmental opportunities that build your skills towards that goal. For example, start by being a reviewer for that journal and submitting your articles and reviews in a timely manner. Another strategy is to shift your focus on areas other than service. Now, that does depend on your department or institution, but for the most part, service activities are more readily attainable in that faculty members are required to serve on institutional committees, are required to have advisees, or are required to attend recruitment events. However, areas that may need more of our attention include strengthening teaching practices or boosting scholarship efforts. In terms of saying yes or saying no, quality is as important as quantity. For example, working with one honors thesis student to pursue publication can be as rewarding as taking on 6 to 10 more advisees. Lastly, picking projects that promote work-life balance can help you maximize your time, effort, and energy. For example, the personal goal of traveling and exploring the different regions of the United States with my husband and my toddler aligns with the professional goal of attending national conferences in psychology. In terms of specifics, with those 4 areas in mind, you might consider saying yes when the following opportunities present themselves, especially as ECPs. Going back to that goal, let's say, of being an associate editor, perhaps you can attend workshops that enhance skills in multivariate statistics or find a mentor with that type of experience. In the same vein, Consider assisting in grants to learn the ins and outs of writing a grant proposal. Building a team and managing a budget. Within your institution, especially as we get closer to promotion tenure review, maybe consider being involved in committees that are more weight. So for example, in my institution, the academic standing committee is less time consuming and less political than the faculty services committee. Now, for any project that you say yes to, have in mind to get something in return. At the very least, can you obtain credit in your annual review? More importantly, does it align with that needs assessment that we just finished? Depending on the task to which you said yes, you may be able to earn other gains, such as additional compensation or equipment, a title change, or policy change. However, you do have to advocate for yourself. And as ECPs in any level of us in terms of teaching, that is hard to do. However, saying yes too much leads to overload and burnout and working on projects that don't align with your goals. As ECPs especially, learning to advocate for yourself, especially in the world of academia, is a skill and is an essential skill. Don't let your self-doubt or the expectations of others sway your decision-making, especially in the time of COVID. So again, saying yes too much leads to overload and working on projects that don't align with your goals. So lean on your support system, find that mentor, and talk things out before saying yes. And we're going to turn it over to Karina to help us with that essential skill of saying no.
Albie, do you mind shutting off your screen share? Thank you. Okay, so I'm here to talk about saying no. And saying no can be very, very hard to do. So this is especially something that will be very important for not just early career faculty, but also female academics, individuals in the BIPOC community, and those of you who are graduate students. We are asked to do a lot of service activities, and it's important for us to protect our time and to prioritize some of the information that we put together in our needs assessment. So after consultation with a trusted mentor, shout out to that STP mentorship program. My STP mentors have been just so amazing. They will help you and with your department chair and any departmental mentors that you have, they will help you in prioritizing some of the things to say yes and some of the things to say no. So consider saying no to search committees, especially if you are in the outside reader. So if it's not in your department. So what we're saying here is that this may not really help you in your department. So definitely talk to your mentor or your department chair. Consider saying no to extra advisees, particularly if there is already an imbalance in your department. We typically see more female academics take on more mentees. They're asked for more advisee time, BIPOC individuals as well. And consider saying no to task forces and overload courses. So task force is just another fancy word for committees. And I was very proud of myself for celebrating a win this summer when we put together, in response to what happened this spring, several task forces on diversity and inclusion, and made sure that I was not the head of the task force. Doesn't mean that I did not get asked to be on a subcommittee, but I was not on the steering committee of that or a chair of any of the subcommittees. But we have to protect our time, especially now. After that pivot this spring, we saw that a lot of our teaching took up a whole lot of time, and prepping new online courses and successful courses takes lots of time. So sometimes extra advisees might not be extremely helpful for your portfolio. Sometimes these task forces might not be extremely helpful. Even though you can contribute, you might not take on the, as an early career faculty member, and as somebody junior in your department, you might not be the chair of that. Overloaded courses, especially if you're uncompensated, especially if they are new preps can take up a lot of time and energy and resources. And you have to consider this, of course, amongst everything else that you are doing with your time. So research, mentoring, other service activities, teaching. Sometimes it is helpful to say yes, but sometimes it's really helpful to say no. So of course, saying no is very hard to do. And it depends on your position, your rank, your department, what the culture is like at your institution. And trusted mentors are going to be extremely helpful as you navigate saying yes and saying no. So I would like to give a plug to just 2 of these resources. And actually we, STP, just had a fabulous night about work-life balance, you know, a drink and discuss session. I hope you were able to go to. But we also see that there's a, you know, you can do a no committee. There is a Facebook group in which you are only allowed to post when you say no, which is just fantastic. The link is there in the slides. And you could also do other things like, you know, I tell people now when I say no, I'm like, I'm so proud of myself for saying no. And I just celebrate those wins. Okay, let's go on. So we are now going to take some time to go into an activity of articulating our priorities and our duties as a reflection of 1, trying to maintain work-life balance, 2, trying to adhere to our needs assessment, which is extremely important. It's not something that we think about all the time. We don't get a lot of time to think about this all the time. So we're going to work for 5 minutes on just kind of thinking a little bit more about how we can fit some of the goals that we have and some of the activities that we want to get accomplished as a level of priority. So what are the things that we want to work on now? What are the things that can take a little bit of a back burner, but not too much? And what are the things that can really take a back burner? We'll also complete the Eisenhower matrix, and that is in the link in chat, in the saying yes and saying no document. And that really helps you establish this relationship between how important it is and how immediately you need to get that activity done. So feel free to go ahead and turn off your cameras and ask questions in the chat if you have them, but definitely work on this activity for about 5 minutes. All right, 1 minute warning before we come back to discuss. I hope that was sufficient time to at least get started on this. We know we have a lot of activity and handouts available, and we know that we haven't given a ton of time. We initially thought this would be a 2-hour workshop. But we would love now if anybody would like to plug in their thoughts on completing the Eisenhower matrix or this articulating priorities document, or any questions about saying yes or no, or work-life balance.
Could I add something? Going through all of this stuff, I've never systematically had to put pen to paper. So that was helpful. I've always done these things a lot in my head. And I just wanted to point out, even though I don't feel like an early career psychologist, and I've actually been doing this for about 10 years now. My issue isn't prioritizing and looking at my duties and all that. My issue is looking at a task that I have an opportunity to say yes or no to, and being terrible at knowing how much work it's going to take. That's the challenge. I'm 10 years in, I look at something and go, I can do that. And I just can't understand how much time things are going to take. So it doesn't matter, my priority, all that. It's about correctly assessing the investment in time. And I'll open that up to the rest of you.
This is Diane. I just want to share something that the great Charles Brewer used to say all the time. And I keep in mind every time I'm asked to do something, everything takes longer than it takes. And so however much time you think something's going to take, I double it. It's probably conservative on some things, but no matter what time frame somebody gives you, it's always longer. So I like to keep his commandments in mind.
I mean, I will say certainly with more experience, we get better at those estimations, right? So one of the things that we can do is we can ask other individuals, and we can ask other individuals who've had those experiences, but we should also take in mind, if we do that people with experience will do it much more quickly than folks without it. So maybe that's like stage one, and then add a plus 50% time to the task or something.
I think also part of it is, I mean, not just estimating it, but being clear ahead of time how much you're expected to do, right? So with a new committee or a new initiative that you're interested in, you can, ask the person in charge, how much time am I expected to be able to spend on this? And so if you're clear ahead of, I know, easier said than done, but if you're clear ahead of time about, this is something I really value, but I can't meet more than once every 2 weeks. And if that's not going to do it, well, then at least you know ahead of time. Yeah.
I must be the only one where I do ask my, the committee chair or whatever, hey, how much time is this going to take? They always tend to underestimate it. They always tell you what you want to hear. I've begun to learn and done my own mental math and then I should probably triple the amount of time they tell me, right?
The other thing I find to be really helpful is to map out the due dates and timeline, because sometimes we say yes to things that are, not for a while, and then we don't realize until we get close that they are all lining up. So you have like 1 or 2 weeks where you have all these reviews due, or, you're on multiple thesis or dissertation committees or what have you, and you have to do all this reading, and it all hits at the same time. So also make sure you're aware of that as well.
Do we have any other questions or thoughts?
Insights from doing this?
One thing that I, when I'm thinking about a new thing, is I try to do things that will help me in more than one way. So lately with peer reviews, I've been asking editors if I can include a student on it. And so the students working in my lab are doing that with me. So it becomes service to the field and teaching. And I obviously do some things that are not doing double duty, but if something does double duty, that raises it way up in my decision making.
I'm gonna add too that in terms of work-life balance, I've just been trying to be more clear about it. I feel like we're at a time where things in the academy are shifting, particularly with this year, and we have an opportunity to change the way the academy is looking forward, and understanding the roles of where this ends and being clear about that and saying, I'm saying no because I don't have to, right? Like, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but saying I'm not going to check email on the weekend because I can't. For my self-help, I can't anymore. And I think saying that is more okay than it's ever been. And I think we should normalize that we shouldn't live on this like 24-hour clock of expectations. And so one of my goals is to normalize that for myself and for other people. So if you're emailing with me, I do not expect nighttime or weekend emails or a longer delay, and that's okay. And so I'm normalizing it for myself, and I think we can do a better job of normalizing it for others in our partnerships as well.
All right, my friends, for the sake of time, I just want to take a couple of minutes to share some final thoughts and wrap up our time for the day. So just a couple of pieces of advice that I think come naturally from what you've heard today about the needs assessment, about doing an environmental scan, about figuring out how to say yes and no, and some just more general advice that can help you along the way. The first is to be collegial. Adam Grant writes about givers and takers in organizations. And if you just Google Adam Grant, givers and takers, a couple really good reviews of the work comes up. And he finds that although giving and taking are often pitted against each other and seen as zero sum, he finds that the top engineers and the top salespeople also tend to be the most generous, who give more than they receive. And so the goal then is not just to convince takers to start giving, but to help givers do so more productively while setting boundaries. And so I definitely recommend looking to that work for suggestions of how to continue to be a generous collaborator while protecting your time at the same time. Build networks and collaborative relationships. You're here today, and so especially if this is your first time, you're getting a little bit of taste of how collaborative and supportive this group can be. There's tons of opportunities through our social media, through our mentoring programs, and one day, hopefully, our in-person conference programming to find a network of support within STP. And as we've said once or 10 times, finding mentors. Work on asking for time and support, asking for additional funds or the machinery or the equipment you need to do your job, applying for conferences, submitting for the journals, asking for that course release. It's hard, especially as you're perhaps younger in a department and figuring out the norms of how to do so in such a way that you actually get the things you're looking for. Janet had some excellent advice on connecting the things you're asking for to the strategic goals of your department or your program. And if you're nervous about how to do this effectively, those mentors can help you with that as well. I also want to remind you to document all of the things that you are doing. So last year, the ECP did a workshop on documenting your teaching activities for hiring, for promotion, and for awards. I dropped the link to that folder earlier in the chat, and we can drop it again, because you probably do a lot of things already that you're not including in your mental calculus because we just do it. And so by documenting all the things you do, you can not only enhance your promotion packets or your applications, but also remember all the things that you have actually said yes to. And finally, just a quick plug to find the tools that'll help you do so. I don't know about you, there's tons of advice and apps and productivity programs to help you get things done. And I've struggled to find one that works for me. And so just one that I want to drop in particular is a Life on Track planner. This is actually designed by a recent social psych graduate who's now a postdoc. And she found that productivity planners out there weren't really consistent with academic planning. And so this is a new planner. You can find it online or on Twitter, meant to more align with academic goals. So I know that it can be really easy to hear develop work-life balance and maybe roll your eyes a little bit because it seems like a goal that we're constantly chasing. Oftentimes we get supports which end up being webinars that tell us to find work-life balance without suggesting how to actually go about it. And so we hope that this needs assessment and the worksheets that you have seen today and that you'll have access to in our folder will help you be a little more intentional about that and figure out how to do it that's most aligned with your goals. I also want to share with you a parable that you might have heard before about glass and rubber balls. The version that you might have heard comes from a commencement speech from a Coca-Cola CEO. And he offers insight about the importance of balance in your life. And he says, imagine life as a game in which you're juggling some 5 balls in the air. You name them: work, family, friends, health, and spirit. And you're keeping all of them in the air. You'll soon understand that work is a rubber ball. If you drop it, it will bounce back. But the other 4 balls, family, health, friends, and spirit, are made of glass. And if you drop one of these, they'll be irrevocably scuffed, marked, damaged, or even shattered. They'll never be the same. Understand that and strive for balance. Now, I think that's a nice sentiment, but it doesn't always feel consistent with what we're doing because work is not always a rubber ball, and sometimes those deadlines really do feel that pressing. In our current times, balance can feel harder than ever, and many of us have found that the systems we were using before are no longer sustainable. So I recently saw another version of this that I find holds a little more true. In this new version, writer Nora Roberts says that instead of thinking about each category as a rubber ball or a glass ball, recognize that individual tasks within each of these realms can be rubber or glass. And so focus instead on the glass balls, right? You might not pick out the best Halloween costume for your kiddo. That might be a rubber ball that bounces. But you've got that major deadline that you need to do in order to be eligible for an award or getting in that last publication before tenure or whatever it is. And so maybe being a little more flexible on the things that can go within each of these categories and using that to guide your decision-making process. So thank you so much for your time and your attention and your active participation today. We have a link here and also in the chat that if you have a few minutes today, we'd really appreciate to hear both some insights that you might have gained from these activities, as well as what you thought of this session overall. Finally, a quick plug that the ECP committee is now accepting applications for 1 new member for a 3-year term. You can read more about the application process in the October newsletter, which is now available on the website, and of course, contact any of your ECP committee with additional questions. So thank you again so much, and hope you have a great rest of your day.
All right, thank you so much. That was splendid. For those who aren't or haven't yet looked, the last 10 or so things in the chat are links to a lot of those materials. So if you're looking for those materials, they're right down there at the bottom. They were posted throughout, but now it seems they're sort of consolidated. Additionally, as a former ECP committee member, I definitely recommend it if you are giving it consideration. It may just propel you forward into a great life in STP. With that said, I want to hand it over to members of our executive committee for about the next 30 minutes or so. We have a lot of business information and talk about plans for the coming year. After that section of today's programming, we'll have a 15-minute break. So if you must take a break, of course, by all means, take a break. But that said, for the next 30 minutes, we'll be together, and then we will officially have a 15-minute break. So I now hand it over to members of our executive committee. If you need any assistance in the process, let us know. But the floor is yours.
Great, thanks. Hi, I'm Amy Feinberg. I am the president for STP for 2020. So let's get this show on the road. So I'm gonna do this thing and then share my screen. All right, I think that is what I need to share. Okay, great. Welcome to our business meeting. As much of a recognition ceremony as we can have virtually. I'm very glad to recognize some important contributions that people have made to the profession and to STP, and to just kind of go over some business as well. Let's see. First, I would like to make sure that we recognize the executive committee. This is an amazing group of individuals who give their heart and soul to STP and are so interested in making sure that we are providing the resources, the programming, the grants and awards, everything, so that you all can have outlets to say yes to, as we just heard. I find all of these people amazing, and I hope if you ever run into them either online or hopefully one day in person, that you will thank them for their service, because they have done just an excellent job leading this organization since I've been involved. Let's talk a little bit about 2020 though. It did not go as planned, as you all know. I think if I could have, dreamt up the perfect year, I don't think 2020, the way it's gone down, would have been the perfect year for me to be president of STP. This year has been punctuated by a lot: loss, anxiety, hardship, illness, trauma, but also awakening, appreciation, recollection, reprioritizing. It's been tough. It has been a time for us to really look at who we are as an organization and who we are as individuals. I want to focus for just a moment on loss. There's been a lot of loss for everyone this year. We've had tangible losses in perhaps opportunities, in some cases jobs, in some cases, contact with our students. And then in some cases, we've lost people that we love. Most recently, we've lost people like Sam Cameron, a former STP president. We lost Scott Lilienfeld, a giant in the field who was a member of our society. I can't even begin to recognize everyone that COVID has taken from us and that just 2020 kind of took for us. So I'd like to just take a moment of quiet to remember the people that we have lost, both as a society and as people, to reflect on our missing them, how much they meant to us, and how we can perhaps carry on their memories moving forward. Thank you. It is our 75th anniversary, and as Jordan mentioned earlier, we had big plans. We had really hoped to rent out a venue and have music and dancing and laughter and cocktails and perhaps some finger food, and just really spend some time celebrating that the teaching of psychology has been in APAs and the public consciousness for 75 years, and to dream about where we could go from here. So I hope that in your own small way, you find some time to celebrate STP at 75 and think about how you want to be involved moving forward as a part of this society and as a part of making the teaching of psychology better for your colleagues and for your students in the future. So the main piece of business we have to get done is that we are proposing some changes to the bylaws. This is the most exciting thing we do in STP, right? Yeah. In our newsletter, you can click on this link here to go to the bylaws changes that are proposed, and for you as a member to vote on whether you want us to approve those bylaw changes or not. Bylaws are the rules that we follow as a society to make sure that we are doing what we need to do to make teaching and learning of psychology better for everybody. And so if we don't follow those rules, then we're dealing with then unwritten rules, which we've learned is not a good thing. So we want to be sure that we're being transparent and that you have an opportunity to give your voice to whether or not these changes should take place. At last year's ACT, we had the official reading of the changes. And so those are available to you on this link when you click on it to read the bylaws changes, where we have made changes and how they differ from the previous version. So please, I know it's not the most exciting thing, but if you just take a few moments to go and give your voice to that, I think that would be a very lovely contribution to STP to help make sure that we're doing the job that we say we're doing for you. It has been mentioned before that you know, in the chat during the ECP talk that was given here recently, that, you know, there are many ways to get involved in STP, and hopefully you will see that it is one of those things that you can say yes to that can make you that can give you a lot of bang for your buck. So we do have a get involved page. I encourage you to join that, to click on that whenever, and see where you can get involved. These are just some of the opportunities that are kind of available right now. But I really want to point out our note here that for all positions, we really encourage applications and nominations from colleagues who are from underrepresented groups and have diverse backgrounds and experiences. Certainly, you know, this year has pointed out to us yet again how important it is that we value diversity. We recognize that diversity, equity, and inclusion make us stronger as a society. And so I want to be sure that you all know that we want to see applications from a wide variety of people. It is very challenging in this day and age with COVID and with everything that has changed our lives to find yet another thing to say yes to. But I hope that you will see that this is a supportive community that will help you through whatever volunteer work that you would like to do for the society. We are looking right now for people to run for office. We have some openings on our executive committee. Every year we elect a new president-elect, and our vice presidential roles do rotate as to which are available each year to run for. But those are we have membership and diversity and international relations that are going to be open this year. We would love to see candidates apply, not apply, but put their name in for these elections. The rest are application based. So put in your application. There's no nomination that's involved. If you would like to be involved, sign up, and hopefully we'll have several people to choose from. And usually if we have to tell somebody, hey, we're going to fill this with another person, there's usually something else that we can say, hey, but would you be interested in perhaps putting your name in for this position? And then lastly, for those of you who are APA members, members, we really want to encourage you, if you have not already, to consider applying for APA Fellow status. This is open for any APA member who's also a member of STP who has at least 5 years experience in the field. So you ECPs who have been working to contribute to the teaching and learning of psychology, consider applying to be a fellow as well. And that is an opportunity that that gives you a lot of bang for your buck as well. I want to recognize quickly the people to whom we bestowed awards on this year. We presented all of these awards asynchronously, and they are available on the STP Asynchronous Virtual ACT Conference. And it was a lovely time to be able to recognize these people for their outstanding teaching and to have them say a few words of appreciation back. So please take a few minutes to go and watch those presentations. But I want to make sure that we honor them in this forum as well. Bethany Fleck Dillon for our inaugural Civic Engagement Award, Judith Bryant for our inaugural Mentorship of Teachers Award, and then our Teaching Excellence Awards, Jacqueline Ronquillo Adache, Steve Jones, Amy Nussbaum, Lindsay Masland, and Guy Boysen. All amazing teachers. You can also see in I believe the current issue of the Teaching of Psychology Journal, there are profiles of each of our award winners in that journal so that you can get a little insight into why they were chosen for these awards this year. Next is also a fun part. Each year, the president of STP is given the opportunity to give 2 presidential citations. And then, of course, we recognize others for their service to the society. And so I want to take a few minutes to recognize these folks for their contributions to STP. First is a presidential citation to Loretta Neal McGregor of Arkansas State University. Loretta is one of the pillars in our field. She is an excellent teacher of psychology. She is a scholar of the work of Mamie Phipps Clark, of the famous Kenneth and Mamie Clark Black doll, white doll studies that influenced the Brown versus Board of Education decision. She is just a generous and wonderful human being. And I hope you can take some time to watch the presentation of her citation that we did asynchronously. I also want to note that she is the first African-American to receive a presidential citation from STP. And I was very pleased to give her that honor this year. The other presidential citation this year was given to Kristen Whitlock of Davis High School in Utah. She is the AP psychology teacher there, and I believe she's taught there her entire career. Kristen, again, another giant pillar of our field. If you think of any project that's been related to the teaching of high school psychology over the past couple decades or so, Kristen's name is associated with it, and she's just an amazing human being as well. I was also able to present her citation asynchronously, and I encourage you to go watch that as well. Also of note, Kristen is the first high school teacher of psychology to receive a presidential citation, and I was also happy to give her that honor as well. We also have a couple of special recognitions that we would like to be sure are noted. First, Jamie McMinn was our past director of APA programming for STP, and due to some unforeseen circumstances was needed to continue his service into 2020 this year. And without hesitation, Jamie agreed and helped usher in, along with Missy Beers, our director of APA programming, and a wonderful roster of speakers for the virtual APA conference that took place in August. So I want to extend the Society's deep gratitude to Jamie for volunteering to extend his service to assist our director of STP programming at APA this year. Thank you, Jamie. And I also want to recognize Lindsay Masland. Lindsay is our incoming director of ACT and stepped up to be a help to Jordan and the committee to reimagine our in-person conference into this virtual conference. Her expertise in online teaching, I think, played a huge role in helping everyone make sure that this conference has been as amazing as it has been. So I thank very much Lindsay on behalf of the Society for her contributions there. Now, we would like to recognize people who are rotating out of service. As people, do work for the Society, they tend to serve a term. We do term limit people. People can't just serve for the rest of their existence. So usually people are limited to 2 terms of service. And so some of these folks have served their 2 years, some have just served 1, but they've decided that other opportunities need to take priority. And so we want to thank them for their service. We have sent them lovely plaques. This is mine because, I'm rotating out of my position, but we have lovely plaques that we have sent to them already, along with letters of appreciation. So a couple of the first 2, these report directly to the executive committee. Dana Dunn is ending his service as chair for our Fund for Excellence. The Fund for Excellence is a philanthropic arm of STP. And we use funds from the Fund for Excellence to fund the awards and travel for our STP Teaching Excellence Award winners. So if you are interested in giving, you can give to the Fund for Excellence, but Dana is rotating off of his service there, and we thank him so much for that. We also want to thank Bill Hill for his service as archivist. He has been our inaugural archivist and historian, and he has been diligently archiving all of the communications amongst the executive committee, and working with the Cummings Center for the History of Psychology at the University of Akron to keep all of our records over the last several years modernized and collected. And so we thank him for his service. Under our diversity and international relations area, we have 3 people who are rotating off. Mark Tjersen, who is rotating off as chair of the International Relations Committee, Leslie Berntsen, who is rotating also off as chair of the International Relations Committee, and you see their terms of service there, and Manisha Sawhney, who has been chair of the International Twitter Poster Conference Committee. She is rotating off this year as well, so we thank them for their service. For grants and awards, Christina Jacobson is rotating off as chair of the Teaching Awards Committee. Eric Klein is rotating as chair of the Partnership Small Grants Committee, and Maria Howell Carter is rotating off as the chair of the Sodal Research Grants Committee. We thank them for their service. In membership, Rita Obaid is rotating as chair of the membership committee. Elizabeth Che is rotating off as chair of the Graduate Student Teaching Association, and Jessica Brodsky is also rotating off as co-chair of the Graduate Student Teaching Association. And you can see their terms of service there, and we thank them for their service. Also, we rotating off our Karina Malavanti and Daniel Storage as co-chairs of our Early Career Psychologists Committee. You saw their service just prior to this presentation through the ECP committee's presentation, and we thank them very much for their service. In our resources area, Tara Kuther is rotating as editor of STP eBooks, and as you noticed, we're still looking for her replacement, so yeah. And then Drew Christopher is rotating as editor of the Teaching of Psychology Journal. And I am pleased to announce at this meeting that we have bestowed upon Drew the title of Editor Emeritus of the Teaching of Psychology Journal. He joins Robert Daniel, Randy Smith, and Charles Brewer as editors emerita of our journal. So congratulations to Drew on this honor. In our programming area, I would be completely remiss if we did not spend a moment thanking Jordan Troisi for leading ACT, not only these last few years in our in-person conferences, but leading the effort to convert this conference into a virtual conference. Back in back in May when we were contemplating this move, I made sure to tell Jordan that he was under no obligation to make this happen. He also is living in this world and was experiencing all that COVID had to offer us. And I didn't want him to feel like this was something that he had to put on his plate that was above and beyond the call of duty. And I tell you that Jordan did not blink an eye, that at least I saw. And he stepped up and led this effort to make ACT a virtual conference and to give all of us an opportunity to experience this professional development and networking opportunity. While it is not the same as being in person, it is definitely the best I could have ever hoped for. So thank you, Jordan, for your service. I'm getting a little choked up. Okay, so as I showed you, here's my plaque. I'm rotating off too, but really, I still have another year. I'll be around next year as past president, you know, and I get to be the curmudgeon on the committee who says, well, that's not how we always did it, right? So I am incredibly excited to be able to pass the baton to Susan Nolan. But I do note that I did a presidential talk. I didn't want to do it live. So I did it asynchronously. And I hope if you're so inclined to take a moment and watch that and learn what the Landrum coefficient is. But I just want to say that this year, while certainly not what I have planned, has still been an amazing professional experience for me. I had already decided that one of my main presidential initiatives this year would be to find ways to effectively change our structure so that we can be a more diverse and inclusive society. Tasita Tormala and Rita Obaid, Tasita, chair of our diversity committee, and Rita, chair of our membership committee, are working with their teams to develop recommendations for the EC to consider before the end of this year that will hopefully help provide a place for people to feel represented in STP. And when George Floyd was murdered in May, it just became more and more clear how important that goal is for our society. I am extremely grateful to members of this society, specifically the Diversity Committee and the Membership Committee, for being interested in thinking about what real structural change needs to look like. I don't want the change to be performative. I don't want us to rest on any laurels and any advances that we may have earned. I want us to be a place truly where people realize the dreams and the goals of being inclusive, diverse, and equitable. And I hope that at the very least, I can be a footnote in those efforts. It has been an honor. Thank you. Susan?
Now you've got me close to tears. Thank you, Amy. Thank you for your leadership this year. There's so many, I hope you'll get a chance to look at the chat. Lovely comments thanking you for your amazing leadership. I also echo your thanks to Jordan and Lindsay and the amazing work that they and their team did pulling this off. It's been a really wonderful conference. It's going to be a tough act to follow all of this. Oh God, no pun intended there, but next year. But I'm really excited to do that. The most exciting thing about being STP president, though, is that Amy's going to soon have to send me the gavel, and I've never had a gavel before, so I'm very excited for that. I'm just going to briefly describe my 3 task forces and encourage people to email me, susan.nolan@sh SHU, Seton Hall University, so shu.edu, if you're interested in joining any of them. The first one is on diversity, equity, inclusion, DEI, and international issues, and figuring out ways to more fully integrate them into our organization. As you know, our structure right now has the 5 VP-ships, and there's not always seamless integration in that structure across all of them. So this committee is this task force is gonna look for ways to make those changes. The ECP presentation was wonderful in talking about saying no and knowing when to say yes. And I actually, I think, you know, the idea of a task force is just a committee. All of the task forces that STP has are with the goal of an actual real outcome. So I think what's nice about all of these is you're going to lead to you're going to create something. So in the first one, you're going to hopefully create change in the organization that will allow for DEI and internationalization to be more fully integrated. The second one is on pivot teaching, and this is developing resources. And by pivot teaching, I mean not just pivoting from one modality to the other, like all of us did this past year, but also thinking about pivoting even when it's not a pandemic. So for example, even for individual students whose lives might change during the middle of your class, how can we be student-centered in the ways we think about pivoting for them and being flexible? So developing resources that can be shared through STP on our website or in another way. This group can sort of figure out how they want to do this. And then the third one is in 2014, I chaired a presidential task force on statistical literacy. And in the past 6 years, our field has changed so much in terms of open science, transparency, data ethics, and so on. I would love to see this updated. So that will be also a very real concrete outcome. I really, really encourage everyone to apply, but in particular, people from underrepresented groups. I would love for all of the task forces to have at least one, if not more, ECP, and at least one, if not more, graduate student. So reach out to people that you think might be interested in these committees and might benefit from being a part. Actually, the way that I got involved in STP to start was a presidential task force before the statistical literacy one. That was my entry into STP, and I think I've only had 1 year away from STP since then, and it really has become my professional home. So thank you again, Amy, Jordan, Lindsay, and also just a quick shout out to Tom Pusateri, without whom none of this would happen. Everybody's standing ovation for Tom Pusateri. Back to Amy.
Absolutely. Thank you, Susan. And I'm so looking forward to seeing your initiatives just blossom in 2021. And I hope all of you that we can see each other next year in Louisville, Kentucky. It is Louisville, right, Jordan? Okay, good. I was panicked for a minute that maybe I got my cities wrong, but I'm so looking forward to hopefully, please, let's see each other in person at next year's ACT. But ultimately, I hope that you spend as much time as possible teaching psych, being safe, and taking care. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for those remarks, and an honor to work with all of you. We are at the point for a break. So, and we are like a well-timed class. We are almost exactly to the minute of where I thought we might be. Let us now take a break until the hour, whatever the hour is for you. I hope no one lives in like a time zone that has like a half-hour thing going on, but at the hour, we'll return. I'm going to stop the recording and restart it. That said, not that I believe we have had any issues with this, but we are streaming live on YouTube. So even though we are not currently recording, don't say anything you wouldn't want on YouTube. So take a break, be back at the hour. We'll see y'all soon.
Sorry about misspelling your name, Lindsay.
Wait, when did you misspell my name? Where?
And I didn't know if I could correct it. I left out the S.
Oh, I did.
Your typical misspelling of Lindsay. There's a common one, I'm sure. I will say this aloud before we begin. So remind me if, in case I forget. Amy Feinberg has just a few more words to add before we go into our next session.
Okay.
Now or in a
No,
minute?
no, we'll give it a minute. But
Okay.
but for those who are here now, you are now peeking behind the curtain and realizing that we are going to do that. I have this new desk and it is adjustable. So now I'm standing at my desk. I don't know why I've been doing this all week. Like, this is really great. Like, this.
I love my standing desk. Yeah.
Great view of your ceiling there, Jordan.
Thank you. I mean, you couldn't see it before, but that's a plaque.
It is.
Yeah, that's a plaque that I just recently got.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take it down. I'm afraid it won't go right back
Too
up.
bad. We should have all the people who have plaques just show them.
Yeah. I have the gavel, like, and I meant to like have it, but of course, like the gavel is always the last thing yeah.
If you have your plaque available, pull it up and I'll try to get you. I have to do it twice, so because there are two different levels. So hold your plaque.
Lindsay has 2 plaques.
Come on, get that. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Okay, now there's another group I'll have to do it with. Because there's 2 different Zoom things. So I'll tell you one more time. That way, if you're in the other group, 3, 2, 1. Okay, thank you.
Oh.
We gave out like 50 plaques.
It was a plaque-filled year.
Yes.
The funny thing about my 2 plaques is in one of them I have a middle initial and in the other one I do not.
Oh my. Well, I guess
it doesn't matter, but it's just funny.
All your names.
I went with the recognition. I went with the formal name. And I think that I just used whatever Christina gave me for the other plaques.
You know what we should do, if I can make a humble presidential suggestion? You know how they do swords and top hats in Finland when people like defend their PhD? I think we can be the organization to make that happen for people.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I'm all for it.
I was really hoping when Amy Feinberg said that she would be passing the baton, that there might have been a literal baton.
No, there's a literal gavel. Like, I should have brought the gavel.
It over to this side, and then
should.
you may have taken it from.
Yeah, we thought about trying to do something, you know, clever like that, but like here's your plaque, you know, but it was too hard.
We could have done it maybe where I would have the plaque and I would just go off to the side and then you can show it the other way.
Yeah. So, yeah.
For all of us who have the time to figure out those things.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're just a minute past the hour. Soon we'll be beginning Amy Hunter's presentation, Project Syllabus, the ACT edition. But before we do that, let me begin the recording for this session. I stopped it and then I'm restarting it. So there we are. Let me hand it over to Amy Feinberg, who has just one more thing she wanted to mention before we then pass it to our other Amy Hunter.
Yeah. Thank you, Jordan. I do want to say that there was one person that that we did not mention as rotating off the EC because typically the presidents are mentioned as rotating off the year they become past president. But Rick Miller has been our past president this past year, and he is just a delightful human being who has really, you know, set the bar for what it means to be a president and a past president. And so even though we recognized him last year and he shipped me the gavel, and I will ship it to Susan, he has done a lot of good work for us, and I would be remiss if I didn't give my appreciation to Rick for his service. So thanks to Rick. And without further ado, Amy Hunter, thank you for presenting for us.
Thank you so much. I am delighted to be here. Thank you for spending part of your Saturday afternoon, whatever time it might be, where you are. I'm not going to tell you how close we got to today before I realized this was all in Central Time. I don't live in Central Time, but hey, here we all are. Delightful. Even though this format is, as folks have said, obviously it's not what anybody envisioned. When I submitted this proposal, I'm certainly going to do my best to make this as interactive as I had initially planned. I expect technological glitches. Oh, well, it'll be fine. Regardless, I hope that you'll come away from this workshop with some concrete ideas for how to enhance your syllabi using some of the principles of Project Syllabus. I did design this as a workshop, and so there will be time for you to work on a course syllabus. So maybe taking advantage of this virtual format, I'm assuming y'all are in front of a computer, pull up a syllabus, because that's the goal here, is there really will be time. I've worked in some time for folks to actually go through some syllabi and to make some tweaks to enhance your syllabus so that it's consistent with the principles of Project Syllabus. So I just realized that I am not sharing my screen. That's kind of the point here. And let's try this. I have way too many windows open on my computer. That's what's happening right now. Okay, ta-da, here we go. So I have two goals for this workshop. One, the shorter part, is I want to try to convince you that Project Syllabus provides a good model for course syllabi. And then I'll spend most of my time talking about easy ways that you can incorporate the principles of Project Syllabus into your own syllabi. So I am hoping, given the particular audience that we have here, that people are at least generally familiar with Project Syllabus, but here's a plug, just in case you're not. So Project Syllabus is a peer-reviewed compilation of syllabi that are evaluated by a rubric. The rubric itself is based on empirical work. It's based on empirical data, much of which supports the use of a learner-centered approach. And I want to start by briefly talking about two studies demonstrating that the Project Syllabus rubric does actually result in learner-centered syllabi. So the first one by Aaron Richmond and other names I'm sure you all recognize. In this particular study, published in Scholarship of Teaching and Learning in Psychology, participants in the study were given either a teacher-centered or a learner-centered syllabus, and they were asked to read it. They then took a quiz on the syllabus content to make sure they were paying attention. They then rated the hypothetical instructor of this class on the teacher behavior checklist, which, as I'm sure, again, given this audience, you all know, measures master teaching behaviors and also rapport. And so essentially what they found is that student perceptions of faculty, again, hypothetical faculty, these are folks who these participants had never actually met in person, but their perceptions of these hypothetical faculty who had this learner-centered syllabus were markedly more positive on all sorts of different metrics. And I think we can all agree, these are all things that are good. These are things that we would like students to believe about us as professors, as human beings, basically, and that we just have generally more student engagement in our class. So from this, we can see that these learner-centered syllabi are good. They produce these great outcomes in terms of how students perceive us. That's good, that's part one. But does this Project Syllabus rubric actually produce learner-centered syllabi? So thanks again to Aaron and his colleagues. We have an answer to that. So in this other study, Aaron looked and his colleagues looked at, they evaluated the syllabi that are posted on Project Syllabus. And essentially what they found is that the syllabi that are posted are disproportionately learner-centered on almost all of the factors that were analyzed. A lot of the principles that are part of the Project Syllabus rubric are also consistent with Quality Matters. If folks are consistent with QM, if you're doing online teaching, you're probably familiar with QM as a way to demonstrate, as a way to show that syllabi have those learner-centered foci that are useful for students in exclusively online courses. So there's my background. Hopefully that's convincing enough. At least convincing enough for you to be willing to buy into this and spend some time working on your syllabi. The rubric itself is long and detailed, and it would be really boring if I just spent the next 45 minutes or so just explaining the whole thing to you. So what I'm going to do instead is to pick what I think are sort of some low-hanging fruit and highlight some easy changes that you can make to your syllabi that are consistent with this rubric. So let's talk about 3 quick and easy changes that you can make to enhance your syllabus and hopefully your course overall. The first thing has to do with your own roles and responsibilities. Now, I don't know about the rest of you, but certainly for the good part of my academic career, I was really good at telling students what I expected of them. And I was really bad at telling them what they could expect of me. Outside of the usual, I show up on time, I give you a syllabus, I give you assignments, I grade exams, I give you grades, I assign grades, sorry, blah, blah, blah. So I was really good at telling them what they needed to do and terrible at explaining what I was going to do. So one quick and easy change you can make to make your syllabus more learner-centered is to be explicit with your students about what your roles and your responsibilities are. I'm going to show you some examples from syllabi that are posted on Project Syllabus. Most of them are from my own syllabi, but a few are not, and I'll mention those as I get to those. So one way to incorporate faculty roles and responsibilities is to weave it into the syllabus as appropriate, as you're talking about different aspects of the course. So for example, this is from one of my syllabi where I tell students how soon I'll respond to emails. I also point out that they should not expect a response from me over weekends, but I tell them that so they know ahead of time when they can expect to hear from me, and they're not sitting around wondering why the heck I haven't responded to their email. If I haven't responded to their email, it's probably because they did one of these other things and it went into my spam folder. So this is a fairly easy way to give students a sense of what I perceive my own roles and responsibilities are and what they can expect of me. This is from Leslie Burnson. Hi, Leslie. I actually see Leslie over there. How are you?
Hi.
Leslie has this awesome example from her intro psych syllabus on writing assignments. And so she's got this section in what students can expect in terms of writing assignments. So she describes the assignment itself, and she's got some due dates, and then she tells students what to expect about these writing assignments. So depending on how many students have chosen to do something, you can expect brief feedback and a grade within 1 to 2 weeks. If you want detailed feedback, come talk to me during office hours. But she gives students this really clear explanation of what they can expect, of what her job is, but also how they can get additional information. So she tells them what they can expect of her and when they can expect it. And again, I think that's a nice example of how it's woven into the description of the assignment itself. This is from Aaron Harden's syllabus for a supervised researcher fieldwork course. And so this is a very different kind of course, as anybody who teaches internship or fieldwork knows. And this is actually one place where it probably is really helpful for students to have a more explicit understanding of what faculty roles and responsibilities are, because it's a very different style of class. And so in here, she's explaining what her job is, what her TA's job is, if there is a TA, and she really spells that out for students in terms of what they can expect and what that's going to look like, whether they speak to her for something or whether they speak to somebody else. So all of these so far have been examples of ways that you can integrate faculty roles and responsibilities into these various sections of your syllabus. But I've also seen examples where people have something that is just this very blatant, this separate section that says faculty responsibilities, here's what you can expect of me. Often, this is followed by a section that says student responsibilities, which only seems fair if you start with a section on your responsibilities to then have comparable things for students. So then you can add things about students being on time, being prepared, being present, emailing, things along those lines. So either of those ways, either integrated into the syllabus or as its own sort of freestanding section, are both great ways to be really explicit with students about what your job as a faculty member is and what they can expect of you. I think this is especially important if you're teaching first-year students who are still trying to figure out, let's say, how college classes might be different from high school classes. It's great for transfer students who are going to have a shift in expectations at a different school. So that's the first quick and easy change you can make, is to be really explicit about faculty roles and responsibilities. The second is to provide a rationale for why you've made the pedagogical choices that you've made. If you are spending part of your Saturday afternoon listening to a talk on syllabus creation, I'm going to guess you care about teaching. And I'm also going to guess that you are thoughtful and you are deliberate in your course design, and your course choices are not made because that's the way it's always been done. You actually have thoughtfully crafted your courses and the assignments and all these different components of it. So instead of keeping that to yourself, tell your students, explain to your students why the course is structured the way it is. Here's some examples. This is a rather long section from one of my syllabi on the rationale for electronics and technology policies. As you would imagine, this was from back in the day, you know, those olden times, those pre-COVID times when students were showing up in class and things like that in person. But I have policies explaining why it is I wanted them to put their cell phones away. Instead of just making me sound egotistical, like I demand their attention every possible second that they're in my classroom, I want to explain why it matters to me that they're not staring at their cell phones, and why it matters to me that they're not online shopping or on Instagram or doing whatever it is they're doing behind their laptops when they're just smirking, and I know that they're not focusing on neurotransmitters or whatever it is they're doing. But I explain why it is I care about this, and I talk about the research showing that they should care too, because it affects their performance, it affects what's happening to them in the classroom, and it is to their benefit to pay attention. It is to their benefit to give the class as much focused attention as they can. And then the third of these quick and easy changes has to do with the tone of your syllabus. And I'm willing to bet that we have all been on the either sending or receiving end of a misinterpreted email. We always say this, so don't infer tone from emails because you're often wrong. The syllabus is a printed document, and for those of us who post our syllabi ahead of the semester, students are reading that before the semester starts. And so they get a sense of who you are as a person just by the tone of your syllabus. And once they do that, they kind of can't change their minds. Once they get that initial impression, you know, you're kind of stuck with that to some extent. So think about ways that you can incorporate into your syllabus these aspects of tone. So I realized that for the longest time, oh God, I'm sorry about the cat. I knew this was going to happen. So what my absolute favorite class, and maybe the best part of my job, is teaching biological psychology. I love it. It is the thing in my job that hands down gives me the most joy. Except I realized that if students read my syllabus, they wouldn't know that. They would think, yeah, okay, it's class. We talk about some brain stuff, whatever. And I would say the first day how much I loved it and how awesome it was. But I realized that I was really missing an incredible opportunity to put this in the syllabus and to say to them from the very beginning, before they even saw my face, I am like stupid excited about this class. I mean, I really, really love this. Put it in the beginning of your syllabus. And I know that there's a lot of kind of rules and regulations about what you can put in your syllabi. And a lot of universities have specific instructions, you know, you have to have the course description or whatever. But if you can, to bump up that information somewhere near the top of the syllabus about how excited you are to be there, Put it up there, put it in the beginning, give students that information, front load your syllabus with this information about why they should care about this class, about why you care about this class. Why should anybody be excited about this? This is from one of my colleagues' syllabi for statistics, everyone's favorite class. And it's interesting the way she sort of does this stealth switch in tone, where the paragraph starts out with what sounds very draconian, read this syllabus carefully, it has a lot of important information. And then it turns into, the purpose of the syllabus is to help you. I am here to help you. I welcome all of these different kinds of questions from you, especially if it's about the class, anything about research, anything about psychology. Basically, she's begging people, she's begging her students to come talk to her. And she's telling them anytime, before class, during class, after class, whatever, talk to me. But this really sets the tone for this class, especially for something like psych stats, which most students not terribly excited to take psych stats. So she can integrate this into the syllabus to convey that information about who she is as a person and that she really does care about students. Okay, so I just talked really briefly about faculty roles and responsibilities, rationale, and tone. So this is the part where what I would like to do is to put folks into breakout groups. And Jordan is nodding, awesome, thank you. So we'll set up some breakout groups so that you can actually start tweaking your syllabus and start working on some of this stuff. Again, if the technology works, and I don't mean to throw shade on Jordan, that's all on me, whether or not I can make this work. What I would like to do, I'm going to try to do is sort of pop in and out to chat with people. And I'm more than happy to either focus on this stuff or answer more general questions. So this is where I look desperately at Jordan to make this all work.
No problem at all. Amy will be the professor popping into your breakout room. So make sure you stay on task. I'm going to create the rooms here in just a minute, so you should expect to be sent to one momentarily. Amy, I'm sending you to a breakout room. Let me just make sure really quick that we don't have like disproportionately absent. No, okay, they're split in a fairly even way. How's everything going, Lindsay?
That's fine. We've almost made it.
We have almost made it.
So close.
I've also found out that I have a little, like one of those pads that goes under your chair, like not a pad, just like a little plastic thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So you don't like mess up the floor or whatever. And my shoes made like a bit of a funny noise on it. So I've just taken off my shoes. Here I am.
Well, I mean, I'm in my bedroom and I did put on a jacket for the first time in a whole week, but I have pajama pants on the bottom.
That's fine. That's
Hey,
fine.
YouTube.
I came into the office because I wanted to make sure I had the bandwidth and everything. And additionally, like security has to let me into the office if it's a weekend, like the building.
Oh, wow.
Like I call them and that's the process. But I think I mean, I'm still new here, but I think it might depend on who you talk to on the phone, whether they think they could just let you in remotely, or if they like think you're suspicious and have to send someone to the building. Anyway, so I did not wear pajama pants because at least on the chance that I had to have an encounter, wanted to look like a grown up in a full-fledged way.
You look like very much a grown-up. Good job.
Oh, thanks.
That's interesting that you have to get permission to get into your building.
Well, I mean, it's just the weekend, like just because it's the weekend.
Yeah.
And we're doing this stuff, like we have in-person stuff. Like, I mean, almost everyone is in person. So I don't think that would normally be the case. I think it's just the case.
Oh, okay.
In COVID times. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, ours, we couldn't get into our building at all, like the whole summer. And then finally, once it was time for the semester to start, and we were like, okay, you're having some face-to-face classes, yet you still have told us we're not allowed to go to the building. Like, seems like there's face-to-face classes. We should also be allowed to like go to the office in said building. And then they were finally like, okay, it's fine. You can go whenever. And then we just use our, I mean, everything's locked, but we have our like faculty keys. And stuff. So, yeah.
Strangely, logic prevailing in this circumstance. I'm gonna put this back up here. So, still new in my position. Got a couple of things on the wall. You all can't see it, but I still have like just like crap all over the place in this office, like just like stacked on the ground. So now you might see me without with.
Oh no!
I don't know how high up I'm going exactly.
No.
Good.
I'm in my office so infrequently that I've just kept my plaques at home so that if I have a sad day, I can look at them and remember that I did something correct at one point. There was one point.
However, the fellow hung this. It was very secure.
Oh no.
Yeah, I got it now.
Oh. You did it.
Okay, reasonably centered.
Yeah, it looks aligned. It looks aligned. Are you supposed to be moving her around? Or she?
I'll send her a note. I mean, that was sort of the expectation that I had, but she and I did communicate this, that like she has to come back.
Oh, she's gonna come back. Okay, yeah.
But that said, like I'd be happy to send her like a chat. Well, I guess I can go to the breakout room, or I can pull her. I can't. I don't think I can chat directly with her when she's in.
No, you can't. So presumably she would have to come back, because otherwise you might accidentally take her out in the middle of a conversation that's important. Right.
Yeah.
Did she tell you that she and I were that you and I were chatting at her at the same time at the beginning?
She did, yeah.
Yeah, she was like, can we somehow have this conversation together? And I was like, oh no, just listen to Jordan, just Jordan. I just wanted to make sure that, this is a different one, right? Where the presenter comes into a room where there's already way more people than her and all of the cameras were off.
Yeah. She was in at least some sessions earlier, so like it wasn't like she just arrived in time for the presentation. But so yes, that is good. Mona is in a breakout room of 3 with Tom Pusateri and Bill Altman.
Oh,
what a busy room. Almost. So many powerful voices.
Yeah. So many powerful voices.
Now I'm just curious how it got randomly assigned. Well, not like how it got, like just like who ended up where.
Yeah.
I mean, there must be a system for how these things get assigned, but I don't know what it is. Like whether it's purely random or if it's another thing. I am just recalling that we are recording, and I took the moment to hang up my plaque, which is fine. It's a little Easter egg for anyone who watches this all the way through. There's your act trivia for next year.
I noticed, I noticed, it feels like we've been doing this conference for like 4 weeks, but like maybe it was sometime yesterday. So I always like, once I get in the session, and you may do this too, I open the YouTube link in another window.
Yeah.
And then just let it go. And so I had done that for some session, and I think it was yesterday. And then it played till it was done. And then I did other stuff on my computer well after our session, but then realized like, oh, it's still over there. And so just out of curiosity, I jumped. Oh,
hey, Amy. Oh, you're muted currently. I think that happens when you come back.
Oops, sorry, I'm back.
That's
You
all right.
haven't figured that out.
You want me to send you? Hey, you want me to send you somewhere?
Yeah, sure. Pick a room. Send me there.
All right. So remind me again who you were with previously. Oh, I see. You were in room 2.
Room 2, yeah.
Yeah. I'll just put you into room 3.
Awesome. Thank you.
so I thought, oh, I'll just like see what was at the very beginning of that YouTube stream. And it was actually you having a conversation with maybe Carol, I don't know, but it was somebody who had come into your office.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, this is like, I didn't like watch it because I mean, why would I watch that? But I thought it was funny because then right after you like took your mask off, and I was like, wait, what? Because it was just silent, and then I was like, oh, he must have been talking to somebody. So then I turned on the sound and was like, oh, he just like talked to somebody.
Like a real live person. He's
Yeah,
a real live communication with another human being.
It was so jolting. I was like,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're doing a really significant amount of testing here. Like I'm tested twice a week. So like people have the option of working remotely and things like that. And I do still occasionally work remotely, but well, especially this week, just because of bandwidth issues, I wanted to be in the office. But yeah, I mean, I'm in the office most days, and we do try to like, even though we are all being tested fairly frequently, we're wearing masks, when we're communicating with one another, try to give reasonable distance if we're doing an in-person meeting. So yeah.
Yeah. I wish my university could. I mean, obviously yours is much bigger and has different funding set up than ours, but we just the other day apparently, or at least our county, which includes obviously the upstate data, and some New York Times list, was like the 10th highest rate of new infections or something like that. Like Boone, North Carolina showed up on like a New York Times list. It's just like,
yeah. I mean, we have a lot of things working in our favor for being able to do things in person, including like we're a pretty well-funded institution, right? So like there are plenty of other institutions that might want to do a lot of testing but don't have the funding for it. And of course, like what are you going to do? Additionally, like Maine is a pretty low infection rate state, and we are, though, near, like we're sort of like a 2-mile distance from like the core of the town, like with houses in between. Like though we are near a town, it's a fairly small town. So, like we've got a lot of things, like people don't just like pop up here as much. And students have also been really good. I mean, from everything I can tell, students have been very good about, following the guidelines that we've put out. Like, don't have your friends come visit. Like, don't have parents come visit. Though, like, we get it that like folks who want to. It's like it's a small place. It's a little bit of a bubble. Like, if this is to work, it's going to be because there isn't a lot of traffic back and forth and things like that.
Yeah, that's a good point about just the ability to create a bubble.
Yeah.
And so that they can still do some of the behaviors that are problems for our student body, because we have 20,000 students.
Yeah.
And so can't really have a 20,000 person bubble. It just doesn't really.
I mean, as I have found, every time I have ever blown bubbles, it's that big.
Yeah.
It's not in the cards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we have like high rates of compliance with safety behaviors for those people who are in class and things like that. Like our IO psychologists are collecting a lot of data on workplace behavior and things like that, but we have no control over what they do at their apartments, or, you know, if the bars in town or some of them are open. And so it's just,
You know, if any of them have recently gone to the White House Rose Garden,
also that.
it's a very tricky scenario to be in. I mean, Notre Dame is now the president's in the hot seat, reasonably so.
After blaming his students for their careless behavior. So worked out well.
A little do as I say, not as you do.
Did you see in the chat, like much earlier, people talking about we need t-shirts that say it's not all cheese plates. It's like, yeah,
I'm game. You know, I will next year act. I will say no to a suit and put on a t-shirt that says it's not all cheese plates.
Yeah. Well, I make shirts all the time that say funny things, like as a joke. Like if somebody says something like that, then the next day I will show up to work or rehearsal or whatever with that on the shirt.
I believe I recently, well, not recently, I believe at one point got a tiny whiskey bottle from.
You know.
I still have it. It's like a memento.
Yep.
Maybe I'll bring it into the office. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how this campus would work. Like at Sewanee, it'd be like, whatever.
Yeah. It would be like whatever at mine too. It was funny because we had our like welcome back to school picnic, which was a Zoom happy hour thing with all of our grad students. And we did a little bit of trivia, but we did like never have I ever type things, but it was all related to academic stuff and the program. And one of them was never have I ever consumed an alcoholic beverage in our academic building. And the funny thing is none of the first years would have known this, but we often have potlucks and things like that where beer and wine are just like provided. But the first year students, like we're all like, you know, looking to see because they hadn't even been in our building before because they're brand new. And all of the second years and all of the faculty are like putting the finger down or whatever. That's the way we did it. And they were all like, ah! So I had to like quickly explain what that was.
It's just like Animal House over there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I ever. No, I guess there was probably like a reception or something like that in my grad program. Like, I mean, not often, you know, events like that would often be somewhere else, like elsewhere on campus or you know, like at a restaurant or something. But it must have happened like one time or another. I don't know.
Yeah.
We're actually having some in-person socializing for faculty development purposes. Yeah, like, and we've done it now like 3 weeks, although we're going to transition. We've done it in one of the tent spaces that we have that is used for classes, and like it hasn't been like very significantly populated. Like we've probably had at most at one point in time like 12 people or something, and spaced out in the tent. But we have like people can get a little snack box and have, you know, beer or wine or whatever, and people just pull off their mask and take a sip and put it back. But like, you know, I mean, you know, is it as safe as anything can be? No, but that said, these are all people that are getting tested frequently. And additionally, like our cafeterias on campus are open. Like people can go get food. And though I don't, and I think lots of people aren't this year, but like people could sit down in the cafeteria and eat there. You know, the tables are distance, but that's like if you're sitting with someone else, like,
Yeah, that's one thing it's hard to deal with for the brand new faculty is the kind of fellowship part or whatever. I've been having monthly drop in like lunch hours where it's like you can just show up and there's no, agenda. We just sit there and eat and talk.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, what else can I do? Because normally what we would do in a regular year is our chancellor does this faculty club thing where once a month she spends a lot of money on finger foods and beverages and all local craft beverages and stuff. Hey, Susan.
Folks are in breakout rooms right now. Do you want to go to a breakout room or do you want to just hang with me and Lindsay? Either one. So
Maybe hang if you don't mind,
Sure.
or if you're talking about something private.
What we're talking
I've been to Amy Hunter's thing, which is wonderful, several times, and she's even done it at Seton Hall. But I wanted to at least show up for part of it to be supportive of her. So.
Well, if this is a private conversation, we're really bad at it because it is still being recorded.
And broadcast live onto YouTube. Right?
And broadcast live on YouTube.
So are you two exhausted by this point?
I think it'll hit me later, like as is always true with ACT, like I'm still ready to go right on through like Saturday anyway, and then it's like Sunday, it's just like, oh my. So like I'm all right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just said to Jordan, it feels like it's been going on longer than a week, but that's not about ACT, I don't think. Like that's just true of every week right now. So
every week feels like 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Hey,
I'm back. You want to shoot me to another room? Hi, Susan Nolan.
Hi. I'm sorry I missed the first part, but I've
heard the first part.
I've heard it twice. It's great. It's great. But I wanted to be supportive of you. So.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. You're always supportive.
Yeah, sure, Amy.
I do it to kiss up to her because she's my chair.
Not for long.
Yeah.
Not that I'm counting.
You want to go to another space?
Absolutely. I've been to 2 and 3 so far.
All right, I'm going to move you to 5, which currently has 3 individuals.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, this weekend's easy for me because I'm just attending things and it's really fun. But we had our EC meetings last weekend from 10 to 4 Eastern on Saturday and Sunday.
Woo.
Oh my. Oh no.
Oh no, 10 to 3 because we moved it a little bit. We shifted our break. So yeah, but still 5 hours a day each day plus prep. So that was a busy weekend. So this is a pleasure.
Hey, Albie.
So our group was talking, it was very good, but we were like, should we go back? Because it's been like a minute. So we just were like, sure, let's just check in. But we didn't have a time frame, right?
I don't believe a time frame was set, and I have seen Amy from time to time. She's sort of checking in. So, I mean, you all can.
It was Richard's idea. So yeah. I was like,
Rick's idea. Whether it was good or bad, it was Rick's idea.
Yeah, I think the goal, because I've been to Amy's thing before. I think the goal at this point is just to keep working on your own stuff because I've been to her workshops before.
Oh, I see.
So, I mean, do you all want to head back? If you wish to head back, we're not telling you what to do. You can hang here with us if you want. But yeah, if you wish to head back and to like plug away on something, go for it.
I think we've lost our third member.
No, she's right here. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
she's right here. She just doesn't have her video up.
Oh, that's it. Okay.
I went back to eating my lunch.
Smart moves, love it.
I was eating my lunch earlier when Jordan's like, can everyone just turn on your videos? And I'm just like, I have a mouthful of pasta.
Right. That's pretty much it. Yeah.
That falls into the category of not currently able. I didn't stipulate that, but maybe I should have.
I ate fast.
Yeah. Lindsay has put up. She's removed her video. She must have pasta.
I am going to get a snack.
Picture of you, Lindsay. Oh my God, I love it.
Oh, I was going to get a snack. I'm going to leave in a minute, but that is my third grade picture right there.
Oh my God.
I love that.
That is so funny. Well, maybe what I'll do is hop off and do a couple things and jump back on for the closing at 4 o'clock.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
nice to,
Yeah, maybe
see
do.
everybody.
All right.
What, Jordan, what's the next event?
So closing remarks at the hour. So 4 o'clock in my time zone, whatever at the hour is in your.
Oh, that'll be, okay, so Central will be 3 then, yeah?
Yep.
Okay, right. See you then.
All right, sounds good.
Right. So Jordan, and other people who are here and who are listening, may I ask some questions since we have this time? Okay.
Sure.
So I am really, because I just finished my tenure promotion portfolio, and I just was wondering, when is the best time to maybe start thinking about, not even start there, I'm really considering applying for that teaching awards for ECP, but is there a, like, what do you think is the best time to do that? I was just thinking, oh, I have a lot of materials already because I have tenure promotion.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if you can give me because I know Lindsay won that, so that's great. So I was just wondering if you guys had any, like, should I wait till I get, like, you know, was there something that was like set your application apart than anybody else's? Should I wait to get more involved? Like, you know, like what can help or?
Well, so I guess I might say, I'll say some things,
Okay.
but that said, of course, like these are not definitive statements,
Sure.
but they are inclinations that I have. I also received this award some years ago. Lindsay has just received the award. That also means that she is in line to serve on the review committee for the award.
Right, so I'll start sending her gift baskets now.
right.
All right.
Cheese plates.
weekly cheeses.
Yeah.
So I mean, you know, I also, you know, served on the review committee for this award for 3 years. That's sort of the typical rotation. And I would say, you know, I mean, it's year to year, and I don't know. I know there was talk sort of as I was exiting that I like the idea of a sort of like more formalized rubric. That said, what exists are the guidelines for the teaching award that is reflective of your institution, right? So like if you happen to be at a community college, or you happen to be at a research institute, or you're happy to be at a high school, those guidelines reflect what are the major areas. You know, for me, I would have liked a little bit more concrete than just that, you know, like what kinds of things. Be that as it may, those will be sort of the broad areas. I would say in my time on the review committee, I mean, not exclusively, but it did seem to be the case that individuals who were sort of farther along in their early career time just had more to talk about, right? Like they had more experiences, more to say, right? You know, not that other individuals didn't show great promise, but it's like, well, if you've been in a position for only, you know, like 2 years, you know, how do we judge a body of evidence? So let me check in with Amy real quick. Amy, what would you like? Would you like to be sent?
Well, let's see. Do I actually have until whatever the hour is?
Till the hour, yep.
Okay. So maybe what I
was gonna say, do you want me to message anything out to the general group?
Well, here's the thing. So I can either pop to more breakout rooms, or I'm thinking that, well, actually, tell me. I can either keep popping out to breakout rooms, but since I have 15 minutes, I have a round 2 of 3 not as quick, but still pretty easy changes you can make. So do you want more content or more chatting?
Let's go with content.
All right.
So do you want me to send a message to say like, we'll bring you back in a minute or two?
Yeah, is that okay?
Yep, no problem.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Lindsay, do you have any kernels of wisdom in terms of STP awards?
No, not beyond what Jordan had, but I mean, I think the point about, you know, waiting until you're further along in early career, like makes a lot of sense because, and I'm not saying that like in reference to you personally, but like just the general you, because this is my 10th year. And so like, I guess I got it last year based on stuff up to that, but basically I could have applied this year and that would have been the last. one that I could have even done it in. And in fact, I had to have STP people tell me, you should probably apply for this, because I was just like, I don't know. Like, I didn't realize that I would have had this stuff. It was Jordan. It was Jordan. Jordan was my nominator. I was trying to be, but he just pointed at himself. So.
It's not a secret.
I didn't want to out anybody.
I mean, I don't know how many folks know that, but I have not intended to. All
No, I
right.
think that's really helpful. No, that's great. And then that way it'll give me like a gauge of like, okay, these are the kinds of things that I need to have further along. No, thank you.
Okay, no problem.
Well, one suggestion, Albie, just in general about awards, and that is that lists are relatively useless unless you explain what's on that list and what it meant. So you really need to talk about what you actually did when you served on that committee or that task force.
Right. Especially for things that are like idiosyncratic to your own institution, right? Like that, whatever that committee means might not be the same in another place. So it's like, I don't know, like I don't know if that's important or not important. Tell me about it.
Right. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for the feedback. That's great.
Albie, it's Diane. And what I tell faculty at my institution when we're working on portfolios, you have to describe everything in the narrative, because people are not from psychology and they're not going to know what it means to hold an office in the Society for the Teaching of Psychology. They wouldn't even realize that it's the premier institution. So it's really writing it as though you're talking to somebody who has no idea what you're talking about. So you have to convince them of how valuable it is, how important it is, along with the specificity of what you actually did. And product is better than no product. So
let me turn it back to Amy. Amy, what's on your mind?
All right, thank you. I hope everybody had a chance to actually play with some syllabi, or at least have some good conversations about syllabi and how to incorporate some of these things into your syllabi. So what I wanted to do in the remaining few minutes is to give you a little bit more content and talk about 3 not as quick, but still pretty easy changes that you can make to enhance your syllabus and your course overall. So one of those things is to be really explicit about student evaluation, so that you are clear with students about how you're going to evaluate their work and how you're going to determine their grade. And sometimes this is fairly easy, and sometimes it seems a little bit more complicated, and it's worth spending more time in your syllabus on this kind of stuff. So for example, this is a rubric that I used for a graduate class with class participation, because certainly in graduate classes, participation is a really big part of their grade. And so I want to be really explicit about what it is I'm looking for with students and what participation is. I also, disclaimer, I get that this is double-barreled. It is not the best rubric I've ever come up with. It's a thing, it's fine. It's better than the nothing that I had before. So that's what I go with until I have time to fix it. But it gives students a sense of what it is I'm looking for. Often they'll say one thing and they think they're good. They think, check, I've done my participation for the day and I have an A now. But not in a grad class. And I think I kind of alluded to this before, that when students are making academic transitions like that, and the rules kind of change about our expectations of them, that being explicit about those rules is really helpful to them. So I try to be explicit about what I'm looking for in terms of what an A grade looks like for participation in a class. And that you can show up and not volunteer, and that gets you a D for participation. So just having your body in class gets you something, but not much. And then also you need to do more than just superficial reading of the assignments. So being explicit with students about what you're looking for. If you have rubrics, share them with your students. It shouldn't be a secret what it is you're looking for. And I would hope that you would get better quality assignments if you're sharing your rubrics with your students. You don't always have to put this in your syllabus. I understand that when you start adding your rubrics to your syllabus, suddenly you have a 20-page document, but put them on your Canvas or Blackboard or wherever it is that students can access it, and tell them in the syllabus they can find this information and this is where they can look for it. But to just give them that information so that they know how you're going to be determining their grades. I've been surprised that some syllabi don't include stuff like this, where you actually tell them what the cutoff is for semester grades. I've always done that, but some people don't. But give them that. Having this information ahead of time also gives students a sense of fairness, and they know from the very beginning what grades are going to look like and what overall percent they need to earn to get a specific letter grade. And then they aren't, well, they might be surprised at the end, but they're less surprised when you give them that heads up of exactly what that should look like for their grade. Another thing that you can do is to be explicit about providing opportunities for formative student performance feedback. And the goal is that there's opportunities for regular formative feedback and that they're clearly stated throughout the course. So the idea here is to give students feedback about their learning, about where they are, to help them improve throughout the course. So this is another example from Erin Hardin's syllabus for supervised research and fieldwork. And she has this all spelled out in her syllabus about where all these points come from towards the student's final grade. And I love the way that she's got this all broken out. There's this one project called Integrating and Applying Science, and there's 5 different steps. And just looking at that without even knowing what the project is, you can get a sense of what's important based on the number of points that are allocated towards each of those things. So if you're a student, you know that step 1 and step 2 are relatively low stakes. And the idea there is that gives them formative performance feedback that's relatively low stakes. You're giving them a chance to show them what they've learned, and to give them feedback and to help them improve as they go throughout the course. And then you're also giving them the sense that the bibliography and the draft of this project are really important based on the point value. But having these things explicitly stated in your syllabus about how you're going to give them feedback is also really helpful in creating this learner-centered syllabus that is what we're going for. And then the last thing I want to mention is having multiple forms of assessment. And that would include having your learning objectives assessed through 2 or more forms of assessment. So this is from my research methods syllabus, where I break out all of these different ways in which students can show me what they've learned. And I've actually changed the language in my syllabus where it doesn't say grading anymore. It says opportunities to show me what you've learned. And then I put grading in parentheses because most of them don't get what that means. But that is the point of these assignments, is an opportunity for students to show me what they've learned. So that's what all of these things are. They can show me what they've learned through exams. They can show me that through written work like this research proposal. They show it orally through a research presentation. They have these individual homework assignments. There's some short papers, and then there's also class participation. So it gives students all of these different types of opportunities to demonstrate what they've learned. And like I said, that is really how I sell it to them, as here's a chance for you to show me what you've learned in all of these different contexts. So you say that you're not good at tests? Okay. 20% of your grade is a research proposal, 10% is a research presentation. So I'm really explicit about having all of these different ways to do that kind of assessment. And certainly I know that other folks are far more creative than I am in these things. I know people have students doing things like writing blog posts or making videos or podcasts, or I think that this multiple forms of assessment can be limitless. It just depends on your own creativity and how students want to apply that to the course material. So this is the point where if I had another whole hour, I would send you off into another round of breakout groups and then go chat with more of you. But I don't, because that's not how it works. So what I'd like to do is to just wrap up and give you a bunch of resources. And I'm assuming these slides are going to be made available somewhere, right? Jordan's nodding. Excellent. Thank you very much. Oh, good. So yes, it's not a secret. So the project syllabus webpage, the rubric, we have the rubric posted. We do have a posted bibliography for Scholarship of Teaching and Learning that is related to effective syllabus creation and course design. And we do also have the Chico State rubric. The rubric that we developed for Project Syllabus was based on the Quality Teaching and Learning rubric that was developed by Chico State University. And if you haven't taken a look at that, I also strongly suggest that you do. It's a really, really nice resource with a lot of great ideas for how to enhance your syllabi and to make them even more learner-centered. So with that, I'd like to say thank you very much for your attention. If you have questions, comments, anything, please feel free to shoot me an email. I would be delighted to hear from you. Thank you all very much.
I will say we do have a couple of minutes left. If anyone has comments, questions for Amy, maybe 5 minutes worth. We're plenty on schedule, so I do want to allow folks to bring those up if you've got them.
Actually, I wanted a clarification quickly. So for the last 3 points that you just discussed, I could not get the second point, like multiple assessments, creating rubrics and making that clear. What was the second point? I totally missed that.
That's fine.
Because-
Sorry.
Yeah.
I was so conscious of the time. I was speaking too quickly. The second one was formative student performance feedback. So the idea is to give them feedback about their learning as opposed to an exam, right? With an exam, you give them an exam and that's sort of it. They don't get a chance to redo it or to correct any errors that they might have made. With formative student performance feedback, the idea is they give you maybe almost like the first draft of an assignment, and then it's low stakes. And then you give them feedback on it to improve the next version of that assignment. And then you can do, a number of iterations, sort of up to you, but sort of do some iterations to kind of get them closer and closer to whatever that final project happens to be. So the idea is just giving them feedback that they can incorporate into the next version of this assignment or project or whatever it is.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Amy, my classes tend to be very interactive, and so lots of discussion and a strong expectation for participation. But I'd never seen a rubric before, and so I love that. I mean, I'm going to do that for sure.
I've really struggled with that, and it surprised me that with the grad student class in particular that I needed to do that. But I would find that I would give them presentation grades halfway through the semester, and I was surprised at how surprised they were. But because my expectations were definitely different than their expectations. And again, I feel like when they make those academic transitions, I think that's particularly difficult for them to change their what it is they think they're going for, right? An A in undergrad is not, the work you put in to get an A in undergrad is not usually the same amount of work you put in to get an A in a grad school. And so that's partly why I created the rubric, was out of frustration, because they hadn't quite caught on to that yet. But it's turned out to save me so much. It's just save so many hassles in the long run. And I can very explicitly point back at the rubric and say, well, the reason that you have a 70 for participation is because you said that one thing that one time out of 14 weeks or whatever it is. And it makes those uncomfortable conversations about grading so much easier, because I point to the rubric. And in that sort of formative feedback loop, like I said, I give them tentative grades halfway through the semester so that they know I mean it with the rubric. But I think I swiped that from one of my colleagues and tweaked it a little bit, but it's turned out to be incredibly helpful. Yeah. Thank you.
Maybe time for one more question if other folks have something on their mind.
Can I just unmute myself and ask? All right, perfect.
Hi, Leslie.
Hi, I was wondering, I've been shamelessly enabling all day, so I'm wondering if you can say anything a bit about how quick and easy it is to submit to Project Syllabus and how little effort it takes for everyone to do that.
So, and actually Project Syllabus has been kind of quiet lately. I'm sure it falls into the category of, and then COVID. So things have been kind of quiet, right? So send me your syllabus, shoot me an email. I send it out to reviewers. Again, COVID. So I presume a slightly longer response time than usual. We give folks feedback. The process does work kind of like a journal article in which we usually are asking for some degree of revisions, but yeah, I mean, so Leslie obviously is a reviewer and has stuff posted, as you can tell. But yeah, so we try to make it relatively easy and painless. That's my goal. But by all means, we're always looking for new syllabi, and there's certainly plenty of areas. If you look at the Project Syllabus webpage, there's plenty of areas where we could certainly use a refresher and some newer syllabi to sort of update the page. So by all means, we'd be delighted to get your submissions. Thank you. Thanks, Leslie.
All right. Thank you so much. A round of virtual applause. or jazz hands or spirit fingers. I can never remember which one is which direction they are. Lindsay's giving me a glare because I think she knows, but I don't. Lindsay, I'm a new student at this, okay?
This also, by the way, it is spirit fingers, but it's also the way that people who communicate via sign language applaud. So,
oh, I did not know that. Thank you. Thank you, Amy, very much. Very useful presentation. I hope folks also had a good time working on the syllabi, discussing or working on syllabi, drafting ideas. You know, I'm sure this is just the beginning of revisions that we are keeping in mind. As we say, whenever we do course design, that, like, you know, whatever we do together is just the start. It's the start of the journey, and then we take it from there. All right, folks. Well, here we are. I would encourage you, if you are willing and able, please turn on your cameras. It'd be great to see folks' faces as we close out for the year. I'll say that I mentioned this, I believe I mentioned this before. I very much see the value of beverages of all kinds. Hydration is very important. Other things are also very important. I see Tom has a pineapple there. Not an actual pineapple, although next year, Tom, we'll get you a pineapple. That said, if you'd like to have a toast at the end of the remarks, I give you now like 2 minutes to go get something, prepare something. It can be a toast of any kind. We should not feel obligated to do this or that, but I'm gonna prepare one over here. So here I am, reaching into my cooler. I mean, for those, I'll say this, I'm in the office because I wanted to make sure that my bandwidth was pretty good. But it's also a Saturday. So, like, have your Saturday beverage, whatever your Saturday beverage is. As it turns out, as folks are getting settled, I'm gonna go ahead and just prepare, hold on. So yes, I had to look back at our contract for this year. We were planning on being in Pittsburgh, as many of you all know. Our wrapping up a virtual act right around now would have occurred about within 1 hour's time of when we would have ended in Pittsburgh altogether. I'm finding that to be a rather poignant thing to reflect on. I want to say thanks to everyone that made this all happen this year. Thanks to those who are on the programming and organization side. Thanks to those who are on the presentation side, whether virtually in our synchronous sessions or in our asynchronous sessions. We are also going to be putting out an ebook of all the accepted works for the conference. So that will be forthcoming in some months. Thanks to everyone for all of your involvement, and those that attended sessions, new to STP or not new to STP. It was great to see folks. It was great to have so many folks, so many new folks as well. I know that Tom Pusateri, as our executive director, managed a lot of new memberships in the last couple of weeks, because that was the pathway through which we were going to have people join in ACT. So I was so pleased that we've got so many new members. All right. So here I go. Yeah, it occurs to me that I probably will cry during this. So my psychologist friends, allow that to shape your expectations of where this is going. For those of you for whom this is your first year at ACT, I often take the opportunity to have some closing remarks that discuss the role of teaching and teaching psychology in the world, the impact that teaching has on so many, and to wax poetically at the year gone by. This is my last year as director of ACT, so you better believe I'm going to do that again one more time. Feel free as we are going throughout to use any sort of like emoticon type reflections or to visually do things with your hands and so on. Let me take you to what I've been thinking about lately. Lately, I've been thinking a lot about an old song. The song is called Auld Lang Syne. It's a song most often attributed to the Scottish poet Robert Burns. You might not know it by its name. You might know it as the New Year's Eve song. This is the part where I half sing, half talk through a song because I don't really sing. I don't really know how to sing. Should old acquaintance be forgot? That's the one. That's the one. So unless you had just now done some very quick Googling, the phrase Auld Lang Syne probably doesn't mean very much to you, but a rough translation brings it pretty close to for old time's sake. Most literally, Auld Lang Syne is a song about toasting old friends over a beer. Its protagonist sings, and surely you'll buy your pint cup, and surely I'll buy mine, and elsewhere we'll take a cup of kindness yet, for old time's sake. It's our New Year's Eve song, which means we sing it once a year. Together we share a cup of kindness yet, for old time's sake. But of course, coming together to share a cup of beer or a cup of kindness yet is not really about the beer. No, no. Sharing a cup of beer together is not about the beer at all. It's about the together. This reminds me of teaching, and this reminds me of ACT. I'm brought to some other words of the song, how the seas between us broad have roared, and how here's a hand, my trusty friend, and give me your hand too. Here's a hand, my trusty friend, and give me your hand too. Here we are at ACT. Every year, the seas between us feel broad, but especially this year. How many of us feel so many seas between us and those we love? Let's take a moment while we're here together to share a cup of kindness yet. I give you my hand and you give me yours, my trusty friend. Auld Lang Syne is our once a year song. It's a story about coming together, coming back together, a story about longing and belonging. It feels like a story about teaching too. We toil, as its words say, morning sun till dine, morning till night, broad seas between us, year upon year. Then we come together, we lend a hand, and you'll have your cup and I'll have mine, for old time's sake. After 4 years, this will be my last as director of ACT, and I'm left wondering how to say goodbye. This conference brings together such great teachers, such great human beings. Teaching is a matter of the heart, and STP has a big heart. Here's a hand, my trusty friend, and give me your hand too. Believe me when I say that I see so many trusty friends here right now. I wish I could say these things to you in person so we could shake hands or hug one another. Don't we all miss that? I'm left wondering how to say goodbye to ACT, and maybe I can't, or maybe I just won't think of it as goodbye. Maybe we can all come back together next year and sing our once a year song and share a cup of kindness yet for old time's sake. Thank you for these precious years. Thank you all. This is the point where if I were in front of you in a room, I would take a microphone and I would lower it to indicate that I was done with remarks. Done. Thank you.
Jordan, you're amazing. To you, to your leadership, take care.
Thank you, Amy. Now, how do we do this?
Breakout rooms?
Do we do breakout rooms?
And you just keep rotating people?
Sure. Just do some breakout rooms, and I'll stay in the main room, and people can kind of come in and out. We can socialize. Like this is now like we're an after party, right? Like this is off the agenda. So wherever we go, yeah, I'll do some breakout rooms. Chat, do whatever you want to do. I'll stay in the main room. Folks, feel free to come in and out, and I can push you into other rooms and things like that. Yeah, let me make that happen.
How about, Jordan, a group hug?
A group hug? How does a group hug work? And look, we just...
Works because we all hug right now.
Everyone touch the edge of your screen, and then we're all touching hands.
And you just do that one more time. Go for it. Thank you. I'm screen capturing. Thank you.
Well, let me, in true 2020 fashion, let's all socialize. I'll send you to some breakout rooms.
What size groups?
Well, I think I got to make them a little large. So I think it's going to be about 6. Here we go. Hey, Felicia. Would you like to join into a group, Felicia? Or we can chat or whatever? By the way, you're muted, I believe.
I really appreciate you, Jordan. Thank you so much. I've always seen the emails. I don't really attend many conferences because I think I have my hand in several different pots all at, different times. But as I stated before, this conference was on 10, loved everything about it, the information, especially the games. It was a wonderful substitute, in my opinion, for actually meeting face to face. I'm an extrovert completely. So the pandemic has been a lot, I think, for everyone, especially for me. But you guys did an awesome job with this conference. Certainly, we don't want you to leave out from, being around us, being with us, sharing information. I'm sure you won't. You're just letting someone else step in and propose or give something different to act. And you've been wonderful in your role. So once again, I'm going to toast you.
Cheers.
and say I appreciate you. I
Thank-
wish you the best.
Thank you very much.
And
Listen-
now I'm rolling out to
All right.
actually do something else, which American Heart Association is actually doing a virtual event online this
Yeah.
weekend. So we're about to post for that.
All right.
So I'm rolling out right now, but I just wanted to let you know, you and Amy, and everyone else that has played an intricate part in ACT, how much I really appreciate you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Yay. Thank you. So good to see you.
You too, you guys take care.
Yeah, take care. I'm about to pop out myself, but you did great. You really did. You should feel proud, and whatever good feelings you work for you, just you did good work, Jordan.
Thank you.
Very,
Thank you.
very good.
It's so
And
good.
the plaque and the bourbon toast are just not enough. Yeah, you had my 4 roses right here.
Good choice. I'm a bourbon fan myself.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Well, good to
So,
see you, Amy.
yeah,
Take
good
care.
to see you too.
I'm sure
And
we'll talk before too long.
yeah, I want to talk about your future someday soon.
That sounds good.
Okay. All right.
right.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, Marianne. Folks are in breakout rooms. It seems you're getting there on the audio. Yeah. What do you think? Is it getting better? You can hear me, right? You can
Yeah,
hear
yeah,
me?
no, now I'm good. I don't know. So
Okay.
I was in breakout room 4 and then my Zoom just all shut down. May I go back there, please?
Sure.
I really liked them.
really like group 4. I want to go
I know. There we
All
go.
right.
Thank you.
No problem.